Hi everyone, welcome to today's session, Market Discovery Workshop on Latin America as a part of the Seeds of Bravery project. I'm super excited to have you all here. And before we dive into today's session, I just want to briefly present what Seeds of Bravery is. Seeds of Bravery is a temporary accelerator program supporting Ukrainian tech startups. It's under the European Innovation Council, and it's a 20 million euro project with the core mission to support Ukrainian tech startups by bringing them closer to the EU, as well as strengthen the Ukrainian economy both during and after the war. And Seeds of Bravery, we have a huge range of organizations that are working with this. Just 17 organizations that are working with this, and 2 associated partners. We range from academic institutions to industry leaders all across Europe, including Ukraine. I will talk about it more later, but for example, I'm from Impact Hub here in Sweden. I know Anastasia is here from Ukraine, Maya from Germany, as well as Abby from Ireland. So it's amazing to have such a huge variation of partners where we can all contribute with our skills and expertise. And what we more do specifically is that we have different programs, and we have allocated approximately 12 million euro in non-refundable grants in 5 different programs. And in total, this can lead up to 60,000 euros in grants. And as you see, the maturity can vary a bit. It's everything from like a less mature idea stage, like the innovation services, as well as more mature scale-up companies like the deep tech scale-up. But beside offering grants, we also have a lot of non-financial support, as we like to call it. We have an extensive matchmaking program where we try to matchmake the startups with different key stakeholders. These can be investors, accelerators, pilot customers, and more. We have specific programs for female entrepreneurship and leaderships. And we also have days like this, market discovery days, where Ukrainian startups can understand different markets better. We have demo days where they get to meet international investors. And we also have support programs trying to help Ukrainian startups to get their own funding from EU, as well as different deep tech business creation accelerator programs. So as we see, we do a lot of different kind of stuff, which is amazing, and I'm so excited and so grateful for all of you who have joined us today for today's session. And this session is organized by us here in Impact Hub Stockholm. My name is Alexandra Sandberg. I have Anastasia from Vacuum Deep Tech Acceleration, as well as Maya from Plug and Play Tech Center, if you want to say hello.
Hi everyone, yes. Excited to be here, excited to organize it mutually with Impact Hub Stockholm and Plug and Play Tech Center. We have an amazing lineup of speakers today and excited to moderate some fireside chats.
Yes.
Also, just a quick hello from my side. I hope to everyone in the audience that you enjoyed the session. As previously said, we have a great lineup of speakers and hope you take the most out of this workshop with us here today.
Thank you. And then I really want to give a huge thanks to Abby, who's our tech support from Access BIC in Ireland. You know, we can really not do this without you. So a big thanks to you.
Thanks, Alexandra.
Yes, and here you see we have a very packed schedule today. I'm so grateful for all of the speakers who have joined us. It's going to be amazing. We're going to start to get a better overview of the LATAM market, and with a special focus on sustainability with Keyvan Macedo. Then we're going to continue to get a more specific country overview of Peru with Luis Zapater. Then we're going to understand the key opportunities within the energy market in the LATAM sector with Santiago Martinez. After this, we're going to move the perspective to understand the Ukrainian startups who have navigated in Latin America with USCAN team, with Alex Orap, Lina Lenchenko, and Katarina Gordienko. After we circle back a bit to sustainability to understand the market opportunity in e-mobility with Jorge Suárez. And then we're going to have a panel discussion with my fellow colleagues to understand the local ecosystem with Impact Hubs, with Impact Hub from Mexico City, Impact Hub in Brasilia, and Impact Hub in Guatemala. After that, we're going to hear from Jose Alvarez for a founder's guide to Latin America, pitfall, mindset, and entry points. And then again, we're going to go a bit more niche, trying to understand Puerto Rico for startups with growth opportunities, expansion strategies, and investment essentials with Bianca Corujo. And then we're ending this day or evening, depending on where you're located in the world, with a panel discussion on the investment landscape with Diana Navarez and Marcos Enrique Cardoso. So super happy for this, and I want to present our first speaker, Keyvan Macedo, who is a senior executive with extensive experience in sustainability and innovation. Thank you so much for joining us, and the stage is yours, Keyvan.
Thank you, Alexandra. I'm going to share my screen. It's the moment that all the presenters got nerves in order to prove that it's going to work. And I think that it's working. Let me just put in presentation mode. It seems that it's working. So hello, everyone. Greetings from Rio de Janeiro. I'm not based in Rio, but I'm attending an event in Rio. That is the reason that you see a weird background, because I'm in the hotel facilities before I join the conference that I'm attending here in Rio. It's first of all, it's an honor to participate on Seeds of Bravery, and all my sympathies to the Ukrainians because of the situation. So I brought here some information, and it seems to me that further across the day, you're going to receive further details about Latin America and some specific countries. So I brought here a filter about, if we have this filter about which are the top 5 countries considering population, you can see that Brazil is the first one, followed by Mexico, and then a huge gap, of course, between Brazil and Mexico, but also from Mexico to the 3rd place, which is Colombia, followed by Argentina, and followed by Peru. I know that my colleague is going to give further details about Peru later. Of course, I brought you here the second data regarding GDP. Of course, it's a data from 2024. As you can see, even though there is a huge gap between Brazil and Mexico on population side, like 50% more population in Brazil, when we have the lens and the filters of GDP, you're going to see that Mexico is not far behind from Brazil, probably due to this proximity to the boundaries of the US and all the trade that they have done in the past. But here, as you can see, there is a huge gap when we move to the 2nd place to the 3rd place, like Argentina replace the positions with Colombia when we change the filter. But Argentina does not cover 1/3 of the GDP from Mexico. And even if you take in consideration the distance between now the 3rd place and the 4th place, and now the 5th place become a new member here. So Chile replaced Peru when we are talking about GDP. Also, I was thinking about which data I should bring, of course, to give an introduction about the region. And so I decided to offer the perspectives about which should be the 10 top cities when we have GDP side. Of course, it's a data from 2023. As you could see, of course, we remain with the 5 countries that we have seen previously. But of course, I need to add Peru here because, of course, metropolitan region of Lima plays an important role. So as you can see in the slide, we have 3 cities, of course, the Greater São Paulo, the Greater Rio, plus Brasilia, the capital of Brazil, representing in total 40% of the total GDP of the country. When you're talking about Mexico, we have, of course, the metropolitan and the greater region from Mexico City, Monterrey, and Guadalajara, which represent 41%. Just Buenos Aires, of course, the greater Buenos Aires represent almost 60% of the total GDP of the country. And Bogota, even higher, 65%. When we are talking about the Santiago metropolitan area, we are talking about 57% of the total GDP of the country. And Lima metropolitan areas generate 210 billion US dollars as GDP. So basically, the idea of these slides is to offer for you, if you want to start any kind of business in Latin America, if you try to address in any of the 10 cities, you're probably reaching the higher cities that we have on GDP side, and then you have a higher chance, of course, to succeed. But also, let me offer these perspectives about this global risk report issued by the World Economic Forum annually basis. Every January, when they do the Davos meeting, they release this report. I brought you two visions, the visions of what are the top 10 risks on the 2 years timeline, and also 10 years. So as you can see, they use this kind of color code to allow you to understand and to classify about technological, societal, geopolitical, environmental, and economic themes and topics. As you could see, one of the first place globally is misinformation and disinformation. And you can see, of course, here, two environmental issues. But of course, when we move to the vision of 10 years, you're going to realize that basically, even though the misinformation, disinformations still be in the top 5, you have the predominance of environmental issues, and also you have on the 10th place also another environmental issue. So basically, that is the reason that from now on, we will offer this ESG lens and sustainability lens to offer you what could be some of the possibilities in the regions of Latin America. There is an information, because this is almost 200-page report that normally people does not read until the end. And it's very interesting to see, because in the end of this report, there is this survey with executives in the regions that they cover, offering which are the top 5 risks that they have at the national level. As you could see here, I just brought you 3 countries, Brazil, Mexico, and Argentina, using the filter of the GDP. And besides, of course, something that is very common across many countries in Latin America, like inflation, public debt, economic issues, poverty and inequality, labor conditions, you're going to see that there is the predominance on the list about some environmental topics, which reinforce my suggestions about using sustainability/ESG lens to take a look about opportunities in the regions. So here, I just try to list some of the topics that I could see as something that if you try to develop any kind of tools, any kind of solutions, any kind of apps, might be in a good place for people in the region to be interested, like greenhouse gas emissions, the carbon emissions, waste generations, plastic pollutions, nature educations, ESG management data, and diversity and inclusion. So to clarify a little bit more about what I see as an opportunity in the regions, I brought you here this list, and let me try to cover topic by topic. So one of the major concerns is about data management, not only from how you measure it, but also how you capture, how you automatize the data, and how you do the reporting. So sometimes it's very difficult to do the analysis. It's not a matter about the output, but it's a matter how you do the comparison, how you do the graphics in order for the final consumer or anyone that is reading the report could understand exactly the conclusions. But also there is a gap here in the regions about new recycling technologies and reverse logistics solutions in order to address circularity and full circularity. When we are talking about Latin America, especially South America, we have Brazil and Colombia and Peru, who gathers big part of the Amazon rainforest. So any kind of tools to measure business impact on biodiversity is very useful, especially because the tools that we have seen available in the market, normally they cover at the country level data. And if you take in consideration just Brazil, Brazil has a size that is larger than Europe. which means that does not produce any accuracy if you have on a country level data. So how we can have more precise data. But also we are seeking for any kind of technologies to improve energy efficiency. We know that, of course, in Latin America, there is an advantage, which is the advantage about producing energy from hydro plants, which allows us to have a lower carbon footprint. But in the other hand, I don't think that we have an eyes and an effort that try to improve energy efficiency. And those topics, energy efficiency and renewable energy, should come together hand by hand. Also, there is a desire, especially based on European regulations, to have mechanisms to provide traceability, especially on timber products and service. And one other thing that we consider, remember that I mentioned about misinformation and miseducation. There is a lot of fake news in the regions. And part of these mechanisms of fake news, it's based on the lack of the quality of public education. So in the end of the day, just to offer you a very concrete example, in Brazil, if you use WhatsApp, of course, to share a message to someone and you want to forward a message, it just allowed you to forward to 5 people at the same time. But if WhatsApp tracks that this specific message or image has been forwarded in frequency for the last few days, it will restrict you just to forward to a single person. So this was a mechanism implemented because we have a lot of fake news, especially since the 2018 presidential election. And because of it, it was a commitment from, by that time, of course, by WhatsApp. I'm not sure nowadays with the new policy from Mark Zuckerberg, if he's going to, of course, remain with this kind of commitment to try to reduce the level of speed that we have, of course, to distribute fake news. So what we have seen in the region, that gamification play a very important role when we are talking about education or when we are talking about how to influence, how to change, and how to stimulate consumer to change their own behavior. So there are a lot of mechanisms, especially about those apps that people can download, and with gamifications, they might got education in basic topics related to ESG. Also, as I mentioned, plastic pollution plays a very important role because, of course, people want, of course, to pay affordable prices on their products based on the distance that we have related to manufacturing facilities and final consumer. Is very difficult to have returnable packaging, especially for the beverage and the food industry. And of course, plastic replacement, any kind of innovations to replace plastic, it will be, of course, very welcome. Data privacy, when we are talking about diversity and inclusion, it's very, of course, important, as a lot of regions outside Brazil and outside Latin America, there is data privacy legislation and regulations, which for companies, when they try to have any kind of surveys regarding diversity and inclusions, is very difficult to extract the data. So any kind of systems that allows the company easily to get the voluntary disclosure from their employees will be also very appreciated. And when we're talking about greenhouse gas emissions, and when we're talking about all these climate crises that we are facing, many companies, especially consumer goods companies, they have up to 95% of their emissions related to scope 3, which means that they have on downstreams and upstreams a value chain. So any kind of tools that allows to have a more precise measurements on the emissions is also something that would occupy a white space that we have nowadays in the regions. And of course, because we have an abundance of water availability, any kind of solutions about water management solution will be also appreciated. Just you to have an data, when we are talking about cities, depend on the cities, we have up to 45% leakage from the extraction of the water from the basins until the distributions to the final consumer. So any kind of solutions that allow the consumers, allow the governments to realize that there is any kind of leakage will also be something that we have this white space nowadays. And as I mentioned before, when we were talking about energy efficiency, different from the global situation, in Latin America, the majority of our emissions, up to 75%, is coming from land use change. So basically related to deforestation and of course, the agricultural practice that we have in the region. So any kind of solutions that allows us to measure, that allows us to implement any management on land use will be also very appreciated. I leave you here my contacts, both my email address and also my mobile number. So if you want to reach me by LinkedIn, you also allowed to do it. I will be more than happy to give any kind of complimentary information or try to do any kind of conversations that can clarify a little bit about the background and the gaps that we have in the region, which allows you to design and to develop a better solutions for the things that we have seen in my previous slides. Okay, we will stop sharing. I'm not sure if you have any space for questions, but once again, thank you, Alexandra and Impact Hub for inviting me to share some words about the perspectives that we have in the region.
Thank you so much, Keyvan. That was super interesting, especially with the ESG perspective, as I'm also a big fan of ESG. I wanted to ask you, do you think it's common for foreign companies to enter the LATAM market? And do you think they have a chance to enter it in a good way?
Yeah, one of the things that and thank you for this important question, because I think that I should put this kind of information. There is a language barrier in the region. So anything that you want to be implemented, please remember that Brazil probably is the only country that speaks Portuguese. The other countries are Spanish speakers. So it's very important that you have any kind of solutions that allows Latins to have written and in their own language. Otherwise, it will create a lot of barriers. Even when we have this kind of meeting, what we realize is that people has a good understanding on English side, but when they need to make any kind of interactions, they have some difficulty. So that is the reason to have important to have probably a local partner, at least to give some assistance in these kind of daily basis requests.
That makes total sense. And we also have two more questions from the audience. First question is, do startups or businesses who face any environmental problems deal with any specific obstacles? I'm thinking maybe if they have environmental, like if they're yeah.
No, I think that in the end of the day, the civil society, not only in Brazil, but in Latin America, more and more is requiring transparency from the companies. So I think that in the end, what they lack is to have not only a strategy, but a management and a governance process inside their own business. So many companies, they do not do this in monthly basis. They do this in annual basis. So I always refer to these kind of procedure as a photo, what they have seen in the previous year. I do consider that they need to implement any kind of procedure that allow them at least in quarterly basis to track what are the impact that they are generating when we consider especially environmental, but also social indicators. So it's a matter to integrate this into the business management process.
Thank you so much. Hope that answered your question, Darina. And one last question is, are there any particular sectors or regions in LATAM where new startups are gaining traction faster than others?
It's a good question again. I don't think there is any specific sector because some of the sector, like the primary sector, like mining company, oil and gas companies, I think that they are huge companies and therefore they play many small solutions that are just to bet in a larger solutions. So I think that in the other hand, when you have the other sectors, I do consider that they are also seeking for some solutions. What I have seen is that sometimes for small and medium companies, it's very difficult to pay the solution that we have from larger providers. So that is the reason that play a very is important role for startups that can offer solutions that are more affordable and that can be more feasible to be implemented for this size of company. When they're talking about large company, in some of the cases, they are multinationals and therefore they receive, of course, an order from the headquarters to implement any specific systems that they have applied for the entire group.
That's great. Thank you so much, Keyvan, for this and super interesting. And I hope people will connect with you on LinkedIn or through email. Once again, thank you so much for your session.
My pleasure.
And I will go back to share my screen to present our next speaker. So our next speaker will focus more on the Peruvian perspective. It's Luis Zapater, who's Director of Sales and Marketing of Mountain Lodges of Peru, who will give both a country overview and a startup ecosystem overview of Peru. Luis, are you here with us? I would love to have you on stage with me.
Thank you very much, Alexandra. Yes, I'm here with you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, the stage is yours.
Thanks. So I will share a small presentation.
Okay.
And I hope this goes well because normally PowerPoint, Keyvan says this is the part where everybody gets nervous, right?
Yes, exactly. But we can see your screen.
You can see my screen. There's a little title saying Peru Country Overview.
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you very much. All right. So yes, like you saw in my presentation, I work for a company called Mountain Lodges of Peru, and what we do is tourism. Tourism is not Peru's biggest industry, and I was assigned the task of giving you an overview to Peru, which is not an easy task. So I will give you a perspective of my industry, tourism, but I will try to give you also a little overview on what the other businesses are looking like in Peru as well, especially for startups. But because of my profession, I normally am assigned the task to promote Peru as a destination, and it's really difficult. It's a very difficult task. If I have to define Peru in one word, the word I choose normally is mega diverse. Peru is a mega diverse country. In order to understand this, we'll have to go back a few years, all right? Why is Peru mega diverse? Peru is mega diverse because it is geodiverse. It's a country that's located right in the middle of the South America. We have 3,000 kilometers of coast, and this coast is not just any coast. We have the Humboldt Current, which makes our waters cold, and this is really interesting for business because it's a tropical country with very cold waters. Peru was, up to not so many years ago, the second largest fishing country in the world, right before Japan. Now the figure has shaken a little bit, but it's because of the richness of the Peruvian sea. And of course, if we go from sea level, we have so many altitudinal levels going almost 7,000 meters above sea level. And then if we continue going east, we'll go down to the rainforest, which is actually what covers up most of Peruvian territory. Being a geodiverse country, like I said, altitudinal levels from the coast to the high Andes to the rainforest, of course, we have different climates. It's also eco-diverse. Peru is home to 84 out of the 103 ecosystems of the world. So this mega diversity creates lots of habitats. And of course, these lots of habitats also create different kinds of diversity. Peru is a biodiverse country. All these climates, all this richness, all these altitudinal levels create several flora and fauna, and there is a large variety of animals and plants in the coast, in the Andes, and of course in the rainforest. Now, if you add the fact that Peru is also what we call a place to serve refuge, which means during the glaciation, there were parts of the world which didn't freeze completely, and then as this ice started thawing, species began evolving from these refuges. Peru is one of the very few refuges of Pleistocene, especially the southeastern Peruvian part where the Andes meet the Amazon, which is where you have the record numbers of bird counts and butterfly counts and amphibians and mollusks. And there's this huge biodiversity, which is attractive not only for tourists, but also for some kinds of businesses. Peru is also a culturally diverse country, and it also figures, right? Because if we have so many altitudinal levels and such a complex geography, you have indigenous people that were originally from South America, from the Andes, that evolved into different cultures on these different altitudinal levels. As a matter of fact, there's only 5 cradles of civilization in the world, one of which is in the Andes, one of which is specifically in Peru. So that gives us a fantastically diverse cultural expression and cultural diversity in all of the country. If you add that 500 years ago, we had the European colonization and migration, which also came with African migration. And later on, we had Asian migration from Chinese. This culturally diverse melting pot makes Peru a rich country for, you might have guessed, the best food in the world. And Peruvian cuisine wasn't a thing until some probably 15 years ago, where you started to see Peruvian food, Peruvian restaurants in the large cities of the world. Why is this important? Why is this interesting? We didn't have an agricultural interesting business until some 20 years ago. But as Peruvian food became popular in the world, then the Peruvian elements of this cuisine, the Peruvian ingredients, started being exported elsewhere in the world. So now Peru is in the rankings of best countries for exports in terms of avocados and berries, hot peppers, and even seafood. So what that makes is it opens air routes to other places in the world. There was always a challenge for Peruvian tourism to bring people in, because you need planes to land in Lima, of course. And the long haul business for airlines is not a good business unless you have enough tickets sold on business class, a lot of tickets sold on coach. But the belly of the plane, the cargo, must be an interesting business. Otherwise, long haul travel is not interesting for carriers. Now that we have an interesting agro industry in Peru, then the airlines are more confident to bring new frequencies into the hubs, which are Lima and Cusco. Now, how does that affect the business? Where do travelers right now come from? And I will speak from a perspective of nature and adventure travel, although Peru is considered more like an archaeological cultural destination. But most people who are coming right now to Peru define themselves as adventure travelers or nature travelers. 33% of these travelers are coming from Latin America, from the region, because it's really easy, it's really close, it's very quick, and it's relatively cheap. The next interesting market for us is Europe. And it's atomized, really, but basically the large markets there are the UK, German-speaking countries, Spain and France. Then we have the North American market, out of which United States is probably the biggest one, and the one with the highest average ticket. And there's a 10% of people who are still coming from Asia and Oceania, and that is growing steadily year after year. This is actually an old figure. This is before the pandemic. After the pandemic, everything changed in the travel business, but the proportion remains pretty much the same. What do they visit? Where do they come? Well, 92% people visit Lima, of course, because there is a hub. There is a large international airport which gathers most of the frequencies of the international airlines. So most of people coming to Peru will visit Lima, not because they want to, but because they have to. And then we have an 83% people going to Cusco, of course, because their main point of interest, their main focus is there. But then we have additional destinations that have become interesting, like Puno, which hosts Lake Titicaca, Arequipa, 38% with the Colca Canyon, and places like Ica, 32%. And this figure here is probably an interesting figure for us. The main reason Ica is gathering this kind of tourism, 32%, is specifically because of agro industries. Most of the berries, most of the asparagus that we export is being grown in a region like Ica, which used to have 0% tourism. And then we have, of course, other destinations that are not as important. Now, what do people come for? And you can probably guess what people come for. People come for Machu Picchu. On 2023, there was a very large research done by Prom Peru, and they elicited that 82% of people coming into Peru, their main point of interest was Machu Picchu, indeed. So much so that if Machu Picchu, for some reason or other, was not available, they would cancel their Peruvian trip entirely. If they plan to stay 15, 18 days in Peru, out of which only one of those days was Machu Picchu, if that was not available, then they would cancel their whole trip. So Peru is still what we know as a single destination, as a mono product destination. We are working very hard to change that. There's still there. We have now an 18% people who come for other reasons. It used to be 0% 20 years ago. So we have come a long way. But there are some other interesting ways, sources of tourism that we're looking into now, and it is what we call the corporate tourism. There is a multi-billion project being built as we speak, north from Lima, in a place called Chancay, where we're going to have a megaport, the only megaport on in South America. Peru was already interesting for business in Asia Pacific because it's the only country in the coast which has a large port and an international airport 30 minutes away from each other, the only on the Pacific coast, which made several airlines to establish a hub. The airlines like LATAM and American Airlines and Delta have a little hub in the Lima airport to their traffic to the rest of South America. Now that we have this megaport being built north from Lima, there is very high interest on airlines and businesses coming from China, from the Middle East, and establishing direct connections with Lima, out of which they can start spreading their business elsewhere in South America. So, so this mega diversity that I speak about opens, well, there is an additional element that I should mention, because this is probably also interesting for the startup, business. This varied geography, of course, provides with a challenging geography. Peru has a lot of remote places. And out on these remote places, it is challenging to work. But the one reason why these adventure and nature tourists are choosing Peru is because most of the offer that Peru shares has a very high component of social responsibility and environmental responsibility. So what are the businesses that are thriving around this ecosystem? Businesses that bring sustainable technologies. Sometimes on a country that is not so technologically advanced or is so remote, the adoption of new technologies is quicker because you don't have to tear down the infrastructure that already exists. There is over a 90% adoptance of cellular technologies in Peru, especially in the remote area, because they didn't have anything before that. So it's very easy to adopt new technologies when you don't have the old technology to get rid of. So thank you very much. I believe that's all I have for you. And we may have a couple of minutes for questions or comments.
Yes. Thank you so much, Luis, for this presentation. And we have a couple of minutes for a question, of course. So the first question is, so what do you understand is Peru the best country for food tech and agri-tech startups? Would you say that?
Well, define best. Of course, I am biased, but I have to say yes. I have to say yes. It's virgin territory. Okay, so the people who are working in agroforestry right now are adopting every single new project of best technology that they can implement, and they're having great results. No.
And would you say they're adopting all of the new projects? Would you say there is foreign projects included in that as well?
Absolutely. Technology as simple as software and hardware that let people streamline their production and commercialize it more efficiently is being adopted every minute here. But also sustainable ways of energy. There's this geothermal, hydroelectric, solar, all sorts of energy-driven industries are thriving in Peru because it's virgin land. Nobody has done anything before.
And how come? Why do you think there is still so much virgin land? Is it because of the geographical challenges, or?
It is basically geographical challenges. Yeah.
Yeah. And another question from the audience is, what do you mean? Do you mean by mentioning social aspects that startups should tackle cultural differences? What does that mean?
That's an excellent question. Yes, probably one of the biggest challenges, not only for startups, for any industry in Peru, is to tackle the social differences. Peru is probably one of the most radical countries in that aspect. The 1% is really the 1% in Peru. There is a historical social gap in Peru that sustainable companies find challenging to make short. So any solution that involves every single player in the industry and becomes sustainable is very well adopted.
But how do you feel like if you call it the 1%, react on this more social sustainability initiatives?
It's changing. See, the world is changing, and this kind of situation is really not sustainable in the long run. So out of the 3 or 4 large companies that concentrate most of the economy in Peru, there's at least a couple of them who are actively adopting socially responsible policies for all of their businesses.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The Grupo Interbank, for instance, which has banks and insurance companies and hotels and supermarkets, they are very active on adopting socially responsible policies. Also, Breca, which have mining companies and insurance companies and also hotels.
Do you understand where this influence is coming from?
I wouldn't say they were influenced by anyone, but it's a global trend.
Yeah.
See, it is impossible not to see the social gap that we have in a country like Peru. So I think they're just doing the right thing.
That's very nice to hear. Very positive news. And another question from the audience is: are there any specific local programs, accelerators, or initiatives that support international startups entering Peru?
A couple of universities, UTEC and Universidad del Pacífico, have specific programs to gather startups, young startups with international technology and investors. There are incubators, very interesting incubators in Peru, like Asesorandes, for instance, who will only incubate socially responsible projects. And they have a very large international outreach to connect all these people.
Very interesting. In regards to what we were previously talking with Keyvan, what do you say would be like one of the main challenging entering Peru as a foreigner?
I would say regulation. Peru is a relatively young country in terms of regulation. It means that the general regulation is not as sophisticated as differentiating the large companies from the startups. So there is a very large, for instance, when you have to hire people and you have to insure people and you have to keep a payroll, they have the same kind of requirement. It doesn't really matter if you have 5 people working for you or 5,000 people working for you. And that makes it really difficult for startups to formalize their companies. As a matter of fact, Peru has a very high ratio of informal economy. Most of the economy in Peru is an informal economy, and it's basically because of that. The presence of the state is not very strong on remote parts of the country, but the regulations are also not thought of the small business owner, but only on the large companies they're used to work with.
Is this something that is changing, or?
It is changing little by little. But like I said, if I had to put my finger on the biggest challenge right now, it would be that working around the regulation legally and smartly.
And would you say, similar to Brazil, that there's also a language barrier and that you would need local partner as a foreign startup?
There will be remote areas in Peru where people will only speak Spanish or the indigenous language. But there is a difference with Brazil. Keyvan mentioned Peru is concentrated in Lima. Out of the 34 million people living in Peru, 11 million live in Lima. And Lima is the place, like a large city, where you will find people speaking English, for international startups come and establish a universal language. So I wouldn't say the language barrier is as heavy as it is in Brazil.
Okay, that's good to know. And one last question. Thank you, Luis, for taking the time for all the questions.
No problem.
Is there any resource to get to know the market better that you recommend? Like a book or a website or YouTube podcast?
I don't think so. I mean, I don't think there's a single resource. I would start, like I said, by checking on the knowledge base that Universidad del Pacífico University, and UTEC. Those are the 2 universities that are probably concentrating the most information available for startups in Peru.
Okay, thank you so much, Liz, for your time. And I want to recommend everyone to go to Peru. I was in Peru last year and the year before that. Amazing country, amazing food, and hopefully now a lot of business opportunities as well. Thank you once
It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now I want to welcome Anastasia, who's gonna host and moderate the next part of our session. Thank you, Anastasia.
Thank you, Alexandra. I would really appreciate if you could share the screen so I can introduce our guests properly. Thank you so much. Right now, we are going to have an amazing conversation with Ukrainian founders, with Ukrainian founded team, USCAN, and we'll talk about market fit in motion, how Ukrainian startup navigated LATAM expansion. And today with us, we have not just one, but several representatives of USCAN. We have Alex Orap, founder and chief of growth. We have Lina Lashenka, strategic partnership manager at sorry, it's not a correct title. Just a second. Haha.
I guess Lina can introduce herself.
Yeah, my name is Lina, and I'm a customer success manager and team lead of LATAM region in the USCAN. Nice to meet you, everybody.
Thank you. And Katerina is the VP of Customer Success at USCAN. Sorry, guys, wrong visual. Thank you, Alexandra. Dear Katerina, Lina, Alex, happy to have you here today with us. And we will have several questions dedicated to go-to-market strategy. As you know, our target audience are Ukrainian founders and Ukrainian teams who are willing to expand and to get to know this market. But before we start, can you please briefly tell us about the USCAN team, your latest achievements, and what specific technology and business are you in?
Yeah, thanks, Anastasia.
Alex,
yeah, great to meet everyone. Thanks for having us. We are USCAN. We are a product company coming from Kyiv, now a global player in social listening market. Social listening means that we help brands, companies, businesses to understand what people say on social media about their brands, their competitors, their products, general events, stuff like that, to understand consumer sentiment, to find consumer insights on social media, to manage brand reputation. So we work in many markets, Ukraine, our home market, of course, also Europe, Northern America, and LATAM as well. We are a team of 75 to 80 people, almost right now. Yeah, and we have been named one of the leaders in social media listening space globally. We compete with big international players. We also have been named one of the most loved places to work last year in Newsweek magazine rating. We got top 10 position there, like the only Ukrainian company in the rating. We are really proud of that.
And do you still consider yourself as a startup or more of the established business that came from the startup perspective?
I guess that's a matter of a definition. We feel like a startup because we move, so fast. We, we change a lot of things all the time. The product is, being developed so fast with so many innovations in AI, in computer vision, natural language processing. So we feel like a startup, but indeed we are like an already established company. You may call it scale up, technically.
And let's talk more about like the history. So like USCAN has been operating, as we know, USCAN has been operating since 2010 and has a long history of growth and development. But as we're talking about LATAM region, you've recently, relatively recently entered, but as I understand, have already established the team, and you shared with me previously that you had a few trials. So can you please tell us about this path to expand into this region, and and how you adapted there with these trials.
Yeah, absolutely. So right now we have a team of 10 people in Latin America, specifically in Brazil, Mexico, and Argentina. We generate around 1 million of US dollars in annual revenues from that specific market. And we got there in, I'd say, perhaps 4 years from the moment when we first started. So our entrance to LATAM was not like very well planned, I think. It was like more of a trial and error, like in startups. So we were experimenting with like our international expansion, let's say in 2020, 2021, trying to advertise on various markets. For example, we realized that, running Google ads on the US market is like super expensive. We also hired a team in the US on the ground. We had like 3 people there at some point of time, but like they didn't like perform as good as we expected. And it was, costing us a lot of money to try to enter those markets. So we tried to look, around what else, which other regions can we experiment with and tackle. So many of our, colleagues in the startup world in Ukraine, like told us about LATAM, and we started to look in that direction. We started to run Google ads and see, how much we can, get per click, per lead. And we realized, okay, this is a market that has a lot of potential, very big economies, big countries there, but the competition is not super strong there as in the US, for example, in terms of cost of acquiring a customer. Then we tried, as we are a B2B company, so we sell during the like high touch sales process. So we have calls with customers, we demonstrate the tool, we run trials. For that, we need, sales force. And of course, to be able to sell to Latin American markets, you need to have someone locally. We realized that early on, and we tried to, hire our first teammates there. A couple of attempts were not that successful. But the breakthrough came unexpectedly when the full-scale invasion to Ukraine started. We had a guy there who was a candidate for a sales manager position, and when the war started, he just said we didn't even made job offer to him, but we wanted to hire him. He knew that, and he said like, I will work for you for free, essentially. Yeah.
What a commitment. Okay.
Yeah, we were amazed. Yeah, that's our colleague Luis in Mexico. So for a couple of months, he actually helped us with some marketing content, with some contacts on the market. And then there was like our first deal on the market, and we decided that we'll like commit fully to the expansions there. So we started to allocate more resources, and the traction has really begun since then.
I have a question to Lena as a customer success manager and team lead at LATAM. Lena, can you share, like, Alex already started talking about it, but like, where did you start? Was that with the marketing research or partner research, or straight away to, like launching campaigns, testing, and your newly came at that moment colleague Luis helped with the localization to these regions?
Actually, like the localization itself is done with a common work of several departments at USCAN. We have a head of product, we have product team that listens to our observations, and we usually share them openly. They can come from customer success team, they can come from support team, they can come from sales team. We all here like work together on providing this feedback so that we could find the best way to localize the product to this region. This includes like training of their sentiment models, for example, so that we could provide more quality results to our clients in terms of analysis. This includes also a localization of our interface, what is super important in such case, because this is the first thing that people think when they enter the platform, whether we have a possibility to check it in Spanish or in Portuguese in such case, because we have both localizations. And then when we launch new features, we also collect the feedback from our clients that help us a lot in this process to establish the best way of localization of these features for them. So I would say that this is like a teamwork of all the clients, our team, our management as well, our product team, that helps us to bring the best result in terms of platform. And Alex here would also add more comments.
Yeah, so besides the product localization, we also do a lot of content localization. So for example, we have a training course for our platform, like certification training course in both Spanish and Portuguese for Brazil. Then we have our knowledge base, product knowledge base in both of these languages for Latin America. And then of course, marketing content is also localized. So we have our website versions in Spanish and in Portuguese. We publish articles and social media posts in these languages, targeting this region. Then we do a lot of market-specific content. For example, some events like festivals, for example, in Brazil. So we do like some content around that. So it's all, it's a complex localization, not only the product, but also the content localization.
Thank you for clarification. And just a question that popped out. There's a lot of things that you have to adapt to, and not just come with a ready product and think that it will work at that market. Do you have any kind of advisor, or I don't know, the local marketing team who helped you understand the trends, understand the needs, that you could recommend to people who are trying to enter with their product, but bump into some obstacles with understanding how people there think, feel, and perform?
Yeah, so it greatly helps that we have a team on the ground there. So we have colleagues from the marketing team there, from customer success team, and from sales team. From all of them, we get insights and feedback about the market. So without having people there, it would be much more challenging, I would say, for us to do a proper market entrance and localization there. But we also have colleagues like Lina, for example, and others on a team who speak fluent Spanish and work with the market as well. So I think it's still possible to navigate the market without having on the ground presence there, but it greatly helps to have colleagues who provide the feedback and insights.
And I have another question to Lina about the specifics of working with the LATAM team. Is there any cultural difference that you felt while starting working with that market, and how to choose the proper teammates for scaling, for growth on a market that you are not aware of, that you're just exploring? So how not to put yourself in a trap of hiring the wrong people from different cultures. Maybe Katerina can add to that.
I guess it's yeah, I can take it. Lina, if you'd like, you can add something else. Actually, as Alexei already mentioned, we hired, actually Lina is our first customer success manager for LATAM region, and she just starts a sales and covers the full cycle from sales
and post-sale success. Also adjusting her working hours, of course, to match LATAM time zones, etc. And I realized that it's not only important to know Spanish very well to connect with our customers on LATAM region, but it's also essential one to understand their society, their culture, their what's going on in political context. It's very, very important for this region. And Lina is really amazing expert in this because of her education and previous experience. Talking about hiring, so we don't have customer success or support in Mexico yet, but maybe we will do it soon to cover like time zone. We have more teammates from customer success and support in Brazil. For me, for our culture, Ukrainian, and for our corporate culture, they are closer to us, I guess. So, and we have 5 person in Brazil and Argentina as well. Again, it's because of localization, language, and culture. But I don't see a lot of obstacles to have like teammates here in Ukraine. Lina, it's a perfect example, actually. It's just like a main point. It's a different time zone, yeah, because you have to adjust like your time to be closer with the LATAM clients. And yeah, and that's it. But talking about culture differences, especially compared to other countries, like the US or Europe, yeah, the localization and language, it's a crucial one. Because while many professionals and younger urban audience can understand English, there is strong preference for communication, onboarding, content in their native language. Spanish and Portuguese are dominant in the region, but each country brings its own dialects, slangs, cultural nuances. For example, Lina know that because in Spanish they have one dialect, in Mexico or Chile it's a little bit another one. And most customers expect to be engaged in their local language, not just linguistically, but again, culturally. It's very, very important one. To meet those expectations, we focused on several key actions, which Alexei already mentions a little bit. It's a native language communication for build trust, adoption, and long-term our relationship with clients. Yeah, and as you can see, we hired a person in Mexico who like covered both marketing and sales, and Lina, she covers both sales and customer success. It could be like a very good life hack, maybe for audience. When you just start and don't have a lot of customers, you can share the role and find good, perfect person for this. Yeah, it's also important like to understand and localized our support ecosystem, knowledge base, interface. It's also crucial one. Support and everything, align working hours, avoided any English only barrier, let's say. Yeah, and what else? Actually, yeah, it's also important communication style. What I mean, for example, our customers prefer WhatsApp messengers, not email, right? They like talk more than text. For example, our manager has 2 times more meetings with them, with clients from Latin America, than a manager who accompanies client from the US and Europe, for instance, right? Also, I noticed that it's a lot of difference between digital maturity in our context, experience, and technology adoption. While LATAM countries are very active on social media, they overall not good experience with social media analytics tools like UScan. Yeah, and these clients often need more hands-on education, onboarding, more time to adapt with our product than, for example, like clients from the US or Europe. Yeah, because they're usually more familiar with such platform from the start.
So I would add to this, that in a sense, the market is perhaps is a bit under development for, you know, sophisticated tools like YouScan. But that's also an opportunity because, you know, it's growing, you know, more and more businesses realize they need this kind of tech that we provide. And it's a growth strategy for us to be there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm.
Thank you for your thorough answer. And Alex, I think this is a question for you. Did you have to attract any additional investment to do the localization, adaptation, to hire the team, or you were like good and like mature enough to do it on your own terms?
No,
and,
we didn't
resources?
attract like additional special investments specifically for the market. So we self-funded it using our existing investments and revenues.
Thank you. And I previously asked about like the any kind of advisors from this region. So because I know that usually, you know, there is a common thing that if you want to enter some market, find some, you know, like wonderful connection, let him or her become the advisor, or I don't know, a partner, and then they will lead you to this market. Have you considered this strategy, or you decided to avoid it?
Well, we, you know, believe in, you know, learning by doing. So the best way for us to understand the market is, you know, by having our teams there. They are like our best advisors. What we know is that some companies, you know, they enter the market via partnerships. I think we tried something similar with some kind of resellers there, but it didn't like work in our case. It didn't work. So we prefer to go directly to our customers.
And while going there, and it's a question to everyone who's in charge of that, what were the unexpected challenges that you faced? And I want to talk more about the difference between entering, for instance, European market and entering the LATAM market. Could you share some tips and tricks and unexpected challenges with us?
Maybe I can take this one. So I would say that the main challenge that we are experiencing on this market is the payment issue that can take place due to local currencies, because this market is a big market. We're not talking just about one country. Each country is specific. Each country has its own political situation, economical situation, some specific restrictions, maybe limitations in terms of working with external providers, and especially in terms of paying to these providers for services or for access, in such case for a license, in such case as YouScan. And the main issue that we were facing, I guess, in these 3 years that we have been actively like entering this market is the payment issue that can be taking place in some countries, because they can have high exchange rates, for example, for payments in dollars and in euros, or they have no possibility to perform payment by credit card, for example, due to some local limitations. And this is why we are constantly analyzing each country's situation, especially the countries where we are mostly present for now. The biggest market in Latin America for us is Mexico, of course, and but we are focusing also on Brazil actively. We're focusing on Argentina, which is currently actually a good case for the points that I mentioned, because this is a country that is constantly developing and has lots of changes on political, for example, scene and in economical scene as well. And currently in this country, we are noticing liberalization of economic restrictions, where we expect to have growth in the future months as well due to these changes. So here, like my suggestion would be, as a customer success manager that works directly with clients, is first to listen to your clients, because this will be like the best source of information for you to understand the situation, and always to find a way to adjust to these changes that can take place. If we're talking about this specific issue, then here we are searching currently for alternative options, alternative platforms, so that our clients could continue working with us, could grow with us, and we could grow with them on these markets.
Thank you so much. And talking about unexpected turns, which UScan features or products have been the best hits in Latin America and totally, you know, like loved by customers?
Oh, this one I think I can take as well. So our obvious hit in this market is our VI capabilities, visual insights capabilities, because our platform is doing social listening, but not only based on text, but also based on images. And this gives a great source of insights for consumer insights for the clients, because with our platform that is unique in this sense, they can get analysis of images, of thumbnails, of videos. They can get deeper into consumers' understanding and consumers' behavior itself. And this was one of the main features on this market that usually our clients, they just say, wow, it's really cool. We didn't see it, for example, with other tools. And another like killer feature would be our Insights Copilot. This is our assistant based on AI that helps to summarize big volumes of data that can be collected, and helps also to extract insights. Basically, if you don't have lots of a big team of analytical team, Insights Copilot could help you also to extract these insights for your clients. And this is also something that our clients from this region really like, because it saves them time and helps them to deliver better results.
I just got an idea about another question, and were there any like issues with you being Ukrainian team and with you competing on a foreign market? Were there more of a plus or of an obstacle to be, you know, like welcomed? And if so, how did you like overcome these challenges?
Well, like the main difficulty for Ukrainian team, I would say, would be the time difference, honestly, because here, without you being able to adjust your working hours, it won't be possible to work with LATAM region. It's like not possible to just attend your client's request, for example, 2 hours per day. So the first thing would be flexible in this point, because if your competitors have their local representatives, you need to basically offer something similar in terms of working hours and in terms of assistance to clients. Another thing would be, I would say, is that in this region, people, they really like small talk. And sometimes it can be not only small talk, this can be a deep talk. That is why I usually know everything about my clients. We talk about children, we talk about their weekends. I talk about my weekends as well. So I would say also a big suggestion would be, if you're trying to enter this market, to find a person that is really good in communication, that can maintain it, so that the clients from this region don't feel that they are working with people from another region, that they are not working with a person from LATAM, and they feel confident and they feel comfortable working with you and with your product as well, because they know that you are getting them, that you are understanding them. So this would be, I guess, the main suggestion from my side, maybe to consider how you can compete on this market with other brands, with other providers, with other startups.
And Katerina recently mentioned, and now you, would you recommend any like resources or I don't know, blogs or whatever that helped you understand the market, helped you integrate into it? Was there any specific, I don't know, podcast or media that helped you?
I can take this one, Kate, and you can add as well. So of course, as a new entrant on the market, we had zero brand awareness about UScan. So we had to put a lot of effort in being visible, being present, and here being present at offline events, for example, helps a lot. Again, we are a B2B company, so for us, going to offline events makes a lot of sense because, you know, people buy tools like that also based on the trust they have for the company, if they have seen it somewhere, if they, you know, heard about it from, you know, some influencers. So we go to conferences, we go to networking events there, like we work with local influencers in marketing space. For example, we are having a webinar early in May with influencer from marketing industry in Brazil, stuff like that. That all helps, you know, us to integrate in the market better and understand the market and be known by the market too.
And elaborate, please, a bit more about the IAB Mexico membership that you received recently, that you became a member of. How
Yeah,
did
so
that
so EIB
work?
Mexico is a like media like events conglomerate in Mexico around marketing industry. So we have just become a member, and in general, these, you know, industry associations memberships are important. Again, if you are B2B, if you want to be like present across all the touch points with potential customers. So for us, it's an access to their like networking events where we can, where our team members on the ground can, you know, mingle with potential customers. Yeah. So we have just started. I think it's not like a silver bullet, but it's one of the ways to integrate better to the market.
Got it. Talking about future, what are the plans that you can share with us for further development of USCAN in Latin America? Which countries are next, or which, you know, technologies are waiting to be seen there?
Well, in general, we are not limiting ourselves with like any markets specifically in Latin America. We are open to work with clients from the whole region, basically from the whole world. And but as I mentioned before, our like strongest market currently is Mexico, and we are present in Chile, we are present in Argentina. So our first plan is to grow our presence in the future there as well, because we see this markets as a good fit for further growing. And also we have really big interest in growing in Brazil. As you already said, we are focusing currently on that market. We have already a team that helps us with localization, with marketing events, with negotiation on the ground also. So this would be, I guess, one of the main focuses. In terms of like planning of like growing in other markets, it's always good to start, at least read something about like each country separately to understand how stable it is, how growing it is, which economic or maybe security difficulties they are facing currently. Because there can be like times of the year, I would say some months, when the situation can get worse, for example, in specific countries. This can affect your business as well. And we see like a huge correlation with their with the number of requests we get, for example, for demos, or the number of clients that we can work with at specific terms or parts of the year, when we notice that there are some events taking place locally on the level of these countries. So like the main focus, as I mentioned, would be like still Mexico, Chile, Argentina, Brazil, the biggest, like most stable economies and like growing markets. But we also consider working with other countries as well, and we are constantly trying to grow our presence. We are marketing events, we are our educational events that we conduct, like webinars for our clients, and we always welcome clients and prospects from all countries of Latin America.
Thank you, Lina, for this answer. And I think we could talk for hours about your experience because it's so extensive, but we're running out of time. The last question, what would you recommend to our Ukrainian founders that they're just considering LATAM? What one tip, one advice would you give to them?
I just recalled an answer to your previous question about the resources. Of course, you know, resources would be very different depending on the market you're in. But I recall that there is a media in Brazil, specifically startups.co.br. So it's like startups in Brazil, everything about, startups, tech stuff. And there are a couple of others we advertised actually in their newsletter. So it's like some media outlets that can help you understand what's going on in the market. But then again, if you are in med tech, it would be completely different set of resources. So there is no single answer for that. Talking about big advice, I think if you want to get attractions there, you have to really commit, your resources and go all in the market. Until we realize that we should, hire people there, advertise more, invest more in events, we didn't have much traction. So unless you are serious about it, you will not be successful, I think. So commit to the market and it will, bear fruits for you.
Thank you so much. It was an amazing conversation, and I'm really happy that you joined us, Alex, Katerina, Lina from USCAN team. Hopefully, to see good news from LATAM and all around the world about your growth and successes. And see you soon. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Alexandra, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Anastasia, and thank you to the USCAN team for this part of this session. I want to continue to our next speaker from Mexico, Jorge Suárez, who's a transport electrification expert who's going to tell us about the market opportunity in e-mobility. And I see, Jorge, you're here with us today, so the stage is yours. Thank you.
Hello. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Okay, so you hear me?
Yes, we hear you perfectly.
Okay, perfect. So thank you very much for the invitation. I've been in e-mobility for a long time, already 11 years. I first started in Volvo. Let's say I'm a friend of Sweden for a long time. I was in Volvo for a long time. I was part of the GEP Global Leaders last program from Swedish Institute last year. So I really got to connect with other players in the industry working at the global level. So it was a great opportunity. So as I said, I was in Volvo for a long time, then in energy with ENGIE, and then I've been working with a couple of startups in Mexico, one playing in the ride-hailing space, and now with a Mexican OEM providing the first, let's say, Mexican-made with Mexican technology buses, which is the bus you see there. And I also work with consulting. So Every is my consulting firm. I'm now basically in a city near Tijuana working on an e-mobility plan for the city of Ensenada. And now we're seeing this booming opportunity, especially with electric buses. I will be talking about it. And I don't only work with buses, but with a range of fleets. So I started Every 2 years ago as an specialized, let's say, boutique consulting and technology firm, specializing in electric fleet transition in Latin America. So when you talk, let's say the first deployments that happened in Mexico, especially in the private sector, they weren't so aware of how this would entail a change, let's say, change management, because once you get into electrification, then comes an ecosystem that is attached to that, meaning infrastructure, meaning mostly IT, smart charging, and fleet owners don't necessarily or are not necessarily familiar with the energy, let's say, market and the possibilities that you have, solar, storage and all that. So there was sort of, let's say, a more slow market after the first deployments, as opposed with buses. Buses has been growing Very importantly, since 2021, while in NG, I deployed the first ever electric buses in Mexico's transport systems. I have some numbers afterwards. And now with Chinese, especially brands offering, let's say, wide range of models. I mean, we've counted something like over 100 EV models in Mexico at very competitive prices. I mean, you can buy an electric car in Mexico now for $20,000. I mean, before it was the cheapest was like 35. So, I mean, there's a variety with many brands. And of course, the larger brands, and you know which one I'm talking about, a Chinese brand is really taking the market for electric. Still a small market, but a very growing very fast. So what we tell customers is like, before you go full into electromobility, you have to think. And in Latin America, customers don't necessarily plan, but after they sort of got excited, did the first things, made the first errors, we found a market for that. So, and market is Mexico is a large market for fleets. So just because the economy is so diversified, it's a very, let's say, trade hub and sort of that has a very diverse economy, a large population. I would talk about it. So it's an ideal market that has a sizable economy, diversified economy, as opposed to some countries in South America that are more leaning towards, let's say, mining or agriculture. Mexico has a mix, and that makes it very interesting. And of course, for startups, it's been a very important market over the years. So what we do is sort of putting together logistics, technology, and infrastructure. Let's say our deliverable is mostly designing charging hubs for customers, which requires understanding transportation, and then we built a plan for them, basically an infrastructure plan, and we partnered together with different players. I will talk about it to make it happen in reality. Why is Mexico important in electromobility? Of course, a very important location in North America, in the crossroads of North America, but also Latin America. So Mexico plays that special role of being a Spanish-speaking country, the largest Spanish-speaking country, with still a demographic bonus, a lot of STEM graduates, and a diversified economy. So, I mean, a strategic location, of course, a population of 130 million. It's a manufacturing powerhouse. There's been a lot of investment in EV manufacturing, European firms mostly. USMA trade agreement. I mean, there's a lot of noise with tariffs and all, but we haven't really seen, let's say, I mean, the only problem is like Chinese manufacturers coming here to export to the States. That's not happening. However, the local market does provide opportunities. What's been happening is that's more of an industrial policy to sort of help local companies. Like one of the companies is Megaflux. I work with them, I consult with them, and we produce electric powertrains for heavy vehicles. So that's sort of, there's policy to push, let's say, local creation, local OEM manufacturing, innovation in the automotive industry. There's a presidential program for a mini car called Olinia. So there's that traction pushed by the government. Urban demand. I mean, Mexico, it's a country of cities. I mean, it has a large urbanization level, and it has 67 cities of above 100,000 inhabitants. Very large cities like Mexico City, Guadalajara, Monterrey, Tijuana, Puebla. I mean, there's Cancun. I mean, some cities are having, let's say, in the peninsula here, in the Yucatan Peninsula, is the fastest growing region in the country. But mid-sized cities would grow the most up until 2040. I have a blog in Medium where I write about that, if you're interested, and I write about a lot of market issues in Mexico. So cost-sensitive market innovation. Things in Mexico don't happen if they are not TCO or, total cost of ownership positive. So now we're getting to the point with electric vehicles that make sense in terms of total cost, buying and operated, and that's sort of pushing the market ahead. It's been an arena for startups for a long time, especially from South America, sort of wanting to scale up. Mexico is a natural market. A large trend towards public transport electrification. You'll see the numbers afterwards. And I focus a lot on that, because of my experience and because it's the more mature market, so to say, followed by, let's say, private vehicles, and then fleets, talking about trucks, and then energy reform and clean power. So Mexico is in the crossroads of AI, let's say, data centers happening at the same time as re-industrialization plus e-mobility. So now energy has become, or smart charging, smart energy management has become an issue. And that's one of the, I would say, opportunities in terms of digitalization of smart grids beyond e-mobility. So that's something to keep in mind. So the numbers, I mean, these are, as we say, napkin numbers. In Mexico, we say that. It's something, let's say, there's a wrong number there, but I mean, we focus a lot on trucks and buses, but I'm trying to come up with some general statistics. So 400 buses in basically 6 cities, 470 e-trucks. That's a small market for the size of the market. 400 buses is 1% of the sales, as opposed to trucks. 470 trucks is very little still, because I've realized that companies are more conservative. I'm talking about food and beverage companies, retail companies, pharma companies. They've been more conservative, and there's no like regulation pushing this. LDVs is mostly vans, so I'm talking about fleets, but there's 80,000 passenger vehicles. Mostly 60% of those 80,000 are pure EVs, and 40% is PHEVs, like plug-in hybrids. But this will increase by 12, not by 31. 31 is only the fleets, and that's the demand of power that we'll see, which is significant. So the forecast for 2030 is something like 15,000 buses, 39,000 trucks. I'm not talking about semi-trucks, but only delivered trucks, 102,000 vans and light trucks, and something like 800,000 cars. So these will require a lot of energy, and that, I mean, the capacity, let's say, the supply side has been the classic response to increasing demand, but I see a lot of opportunity here for energy efficiency and smart energy management that is still in early stages in Mexico. E-mobility ecosystem, large. I mean, of course, government plays a role. I mean, there's policy pushing for this, especially industrial policy. Now, local governments pushing for this. Transport companies, all kinds, from trucks, parcel, buses. So, I mean, there's demand there. There's like, let's say, for transport companies in Mexico are over 50,000 in all of the country. Different, like I'm talking about trucking or delivery companies. Delivery, let's say, in delivery apps is something that's omnipresent in Mexico. Vehicle manufacturer with a big push towards Mexican OEMs, sort of developing champions in this ecosystem. EPC, which is engineering firms that have to build the infrastructure. Component and battery manufacturing, a big emphasis of the federal government to have semiconductors, lithium. There's a lithium policy in the state of Sonora to have locally built batteries. That's starting. We don't have We don't yet have the, let's say, critical mass, but it's going there. There's policy pushing for this. Equipment and charging manufacturers. Here I see a lot of a big opportunity for Ukrainian startups. That's the next slide, and which I will close with. Mobility and ride-hailing platforms. I worked with a company having a special, let's say, agreement with a large ride-hailing operator, which is deploying fleets, electric fleets. Technology, again, energy companies, banks, a lot of ESG funding is very interested in these projects, going a lot towards buses, which is more of a stable revenue stream over time for consultants like myself. Real estate, I mean, e-mobility won't happen if you don't have two factors, which is space and charging. So a lot of people interested. We are consulting with people having land and they want to participate in the market, but they don't know why. And we also have, let's say, like gas fuel companies that want to expand their business into e-mobility. And then, of course, academia. So what I see, and this, I mean, this was a coincidence. I see a lot of opportunity, mainly in blockchain. And this is because of the consulting, let's say, branch in my company, working with payment systems. I started being interested in this after I was in a class in digital transformation. And my first interest was payment system for transit, because you have a lot of operators in Mexico that sort of blend together in cities. And basically having a common trust fund or escrow account to collect revenues is not practical. There's got to be an interoperable standard for payment systems. I'm trying to understand what we can do there. But also, this is applicable to charging services, because what you're having now, Mexico is very reactive, very organic. So what you see in more mature markets like Norway or China is that you have a mess with operators, like different services that don't integrate. And I see a big opportunity there for having blockchain as an opportunity to have this sort of interoperable ecosystem with charging services. So that's something I really want to develop. Also, smart charging platforms with dynamic pricing, that's starting to happen. I mean, you know, with dealers that have charging there, I mean, they pay a lot of money just to support their clients. And now there's an interest to monetize all the chargers that are already in place. Battery swapping, a small market, but some are talking about it. And telematics, basically being able to integrate telematics. And so to say, in this project in the Pacific, Mexican Pacific, I'm in the city of Ensenada right now, is how to integrate blockchain vehicles charging to have, let's say, a common layer of technology to pay the different stakeholders in the system, but also track all the contract and concessions KPIs in an automatic and transparent way. So I'm building that because I think that's sort of the layer we're missing. Everything is fragmented, and I see a big opportunity there with technology solutions. So that's the overview I can give you. I mean, I open the floor to questions.
Thank you so much, Jorge, for such a great overview. It sounds super interesting. We have one question from the audience. If I'm building a mobility solution, what are the key gaps or opportunities that are still open in the Mexican market?
I would say people assume, I would say, what customers need. So I think there's got to be a very focused customer journey in each sector. So I saw a lot of assumption in prior companies I've worked at. I mean, the customer needs this because I have this, right? So more design thinking, and this is very different. I mean, if working with public transport is very different from working with, let's say, ride-hailing drivers. So you really have to map. So I'm working a lot with design thinking, and this is not common, like in public transport, right? How do people use public transportation? And it's very engineering, let's say, driven, but I'm sort of pushing a user viewership. So I would say understand the journey. If I am an EV user, like a private EV user, how is it that I use the ecosystem? If I own a fleet that has trucking, how do I use? What do I need? So sort of we're working a lot with design thinking, but it's not the UI UX. It's really understand how you have to develop your own ecosystem. So I would say if you work in tech, I think there's gaps in that because there's a divide of, only digital apps, but this is phygital space, apps plus physical. And this is not just, exponential growth. This is more of a, I would say, B2B market that you really have to integrate that sort of mindset. And customers in Mexico are very demanding. Like things should work and they need face-to-face contact. You won't have contracts in Mexico if people don't see you. So you have to be there. Of course, it is important to have a local counterpart. I mean, I'm interested in knowing what you guys do because we do need that expertise. Like I was doing research with blockchain. I mean, there's a big, I would say, progress in Ukrainian companies. I even did some research. And I think we could benefit from that for the specific applications I told you about, EV charging services, payment systems.
Very interesting. And do you understand why the Mexican customers are very demanding? Is it because the competition is so high, or is it culture?
It's because, I mean, once you have vehicles, especially in fleets, they do something. They transport people, they transport goods, you have contracts, you have KPIs. I've been working with food and beverage companies that want to electrify their fleets, and they have to do the job. I mean, you cannot, oh yeah, let's play around with EVs. No, I mean, you have a load or product that is worth thousands of pesos, right? If the battery is not working right and you don't have the range, then you are in a mess, right? Because you're not delivering, you could lose your product. But companies at the same time, they sort of stretch the the capacities of the technology because they're used to working with diesel. So they want an EV to work like a diesel vehicle, and that's just not the case. I mean, I was working with refrigerated fleets, and they're used to having so-so quality boxes, but using in really extreme weather conditions, and they want to demand that with EVs. We have to tell them you cannot do that. You have to have fleets by region with certain characteristics, and you have to start in the larger cities where you would have the most benefit. So, I mean, that's the kind of thing. Also with public transport, I mean, you have concessions, right? You have 15-year contract, you have KPIs, you have buses that drive 160 people. So it's not that you can play around. From a private standpoint, you invest money in let's say expensive or more pricier vehicles, but you cannot leave the city without stress. I mean, there's chargers, but not the ecosystem. I would not buy an EV for my use. I have a PHEV, but not yet. So yeah, people are demanding either because you pay for a good vehicle, and if you're in a company, you're in a B2B situation or public transportation, and you cannot risk your operation. I mean, you won't go into EVs in a B2B just to help the world or reduce CO2. They have to do the job and then reduce CO2. I would say they have to do the job. They have to be profitable. Plus, they save the world, not the other way around.
Makes total sense. Thank you so much, Jorge, for this presentation. It was super interesting and amazing to hear more about Mexico. It sounds like a very unique opportunity being like you said, in between like the US, but also Latin America, and a huge,
Correct.
huge.
I'm writing my email here in the
Perfect.
box, and I would be very interested to have a reaction and more of a personal discussion with some of the companies. So that may resonate, you know, what I'd say may resonate with them. All right.
Thank you so much, Jorge. Thank you. And to all of the participants, please email Jorge if you want to join the Mexican market. And I hope you get an amazing day and good luck.
Ciao, ciao.
Thank you. Goodbye. So now we're moving on to have a discussion about the local ecosystem, this local startup ecosystem. And I'm going to start to invite Duda Scartesini from Impact Hub Brasilia in Brazil. Are you here with us? Yes. Hello, Duda. How are you today?
I'm good. I'm glad to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you for joining us. So just want to start with, can you tell me a bit about yourself and what Impact Hub is doing?
Okay, I'm Duda Scartesini. I'm born in Brazil. I'm co-founder of Impact Hub Brasilia and 6 other cities in the country. So we are expanding our network through the specific part of the country. We are also investing in some startups in the impact investment area or social businesses. We have 8 companies that we invested on, and that's it. I'm here to talk about this experience here.
That's amazing. And what we heard from the beginning, Brazil is one of the largest market in Latin America. And I wanted to ask you, what do you think makes your local startup ecosystem unique compared to the rest of the Latin market?
It's very interesting to listen for folks from South America in general, because all of us think that our country is so specific and so different of the rest of the world. We have the same problems around here, like about the wealth concentration, about the social gap. But Brazil, I always joke about it, like saying that we are the Disneyland for social problems, right? If you want to solve social problems, we are the best place in the world because we are big enough to make a big impact. Any initiative here, it's huge. We have a lot of social problems. We have a kind of stable government, despite of the polarization that we've, like other countries, we've been facing. But we have a very stable country in all terms, like religion, economics, cultural, etc., language. So despite of we are the only one that speak Portuguese, we are a great country, great enough to have a great impact in any sector. So I totally believe that it's necessary, it's mandatory to have partners, local partners, because there is a lot of specificities around here and challenges in terms of regions. Brazil is huge, so just giving you an example, the first guy that talked, he was saying that we should look to Brasilia, São Paulo, and Rio, right? Because they are the biggest city. I'm talking from Brasilia. But if you consider the northeast of the country, if the northeast of the country was a country, it would be the 3rd biggest country in the Latin America. So nobody's looking there. It's huge. There are 9 states, and just to give you an example, we didn't have a single impact hub there until 2 years ago. So Brazil, it's very specific. It's much more than just São Paulo, Rio, or Brasilia.
Super interesting. Where did you get your hub in the northeastern? Which city?
We opened in João Pessoa, which is the capital of I just forgot the name of the state. João Pessoa, Recife, Fortaleza, Salvador, Belém, in north. It's not
Mhm.
northeast. It's kind of the same region, right? So and we're still trying to open more because we totally believe that you have to be there. You cannot just doing projects from here, from Brazil or São Paulo or even Rio, without being there. So our challenge is to develop the environment of social impact there.
It's so interesting because I come from such a small country like Sweden. So if you just have one office in Sweden, that's usually enough. But of course, it's different in such a huge country. My second question is, what kind of sectors do you see have the most momentum right now in your country? We've talked a lot about the different sustainability sectors, but would you say it's the same, or have you seen anything else?
I think I would say that we have a lot of opportunities spread along the country, but I'm very interested in that ones in the industries that have been regulated by the state. So just to give you a real example, we have a very strong regulation about solid waste. So there's huge opportunity because the companies are being enforced to make the reversal logistic about their waste. So it's a new regulation, like less than 30% of the industry, it's in compliance with it. And there's a lot of local initiatives in terms of enforcement. So I'm trying to follow the regulations because Brazil has this potential to be a green country. So everything connected with the green economy, with the circular economy, it has been, there is a lot of new regulations and new opportunities. Of course, the agro businesses in Brazil, it's huge. There's a ton of opportunities. We are doing some stuff with the sector, but I particularly interested in the solid waste and in general waste, like organic waste sector, because of the regulation.
It's always good to find a market opportunity connected to compliance, actually.
Yeah, definitely.
It's a good tip. A question from the audience is, I'm making an agri-tech startup, Duda. What could you say about agri-tech startup investment potential in Brazil?
This area that we are expanding to, Goiânia and the Mato Grosso and Mato Grosso do Sul, those are states very focused and agriculture. And I'm not a specialist in this area, but our hub in Goiânia, I forgot Goiânia, we opened an impact hub there. And there's a lot of accelerations, a lot of investments going on this sector. So the most advanced entrepreneurs in this area are totally connected with the impact investment or ESG commitment. So there is tons of opportunities for sure. I can't remember anything specific, but the most of initiatives that we are doing in Goiânia, Goiás, and other states connected with this area are 100% connected with the agriculture, agri-tech, and etc.
But like in most of LATAM, agri-tech will be huge because of your production. And as we are mostly Ukrainian startups here listening in, what would you say it's like one key cultural differences or something foreign founders should be aware of before entering Brazil?
I like to say that Brazil has a lot of money, but you are not a lot of money to invest. There's a lot of, for different reasons, there is the private sector, the government, and the third sector are willing for good projects. But I would say that we are not so good in planning. So if you have a good idea and a good planning, I think it's a good place to show it up because if you have a good project, a very well-based project with good foundations, I believe that it's not so hard to find funders. Sorry.
What do you mean with planning more specifically?
I think we are not, for example, to have a very strong and good business plan, well done, with good foundations, with clarity. And so I think the problem here is the gap between the idea and a good business plan, a good team, solid foundations for try to thrive it. So that's it.
Thank you. And I also want to welcome Mario Romero from Mexico City. Hello, Mario.
Hello, everyone.
Thank you
Glad
so
to
much.
be here.
Thank you so much for joining. Would you like to introduce yourself and your Impact Hub and what you guys are mainly doing?
Well, yes, I'm Mario Romero. I'm the managing director for Impact Hub Mexico City. And we mainly support early stage startups, mostly focusing on social impact. We have a focus on creative industries. We have a focus on community development. But generally, we work with all around impact in all over the country, not only Mexico City. You may know Mexico; it's a big country, so yeah, we work everywhere.
Yes, and similar to Brazil, Mexico is definitely a big country. What would you say are the key, what would you say makes your startup ecosystem unique compared to the rest of Latin American's market?
Well, it's from what I have seen in the last 15 years that I have worked in the ecosystem in Mexico, it's like Mexico, it's the place to grow in Latin America. So all the startups from all the countries except Brazil come to Mexico to grow. From Chile, from Colombia, all the unicorns that you may see, they come here and they grow here to the rest of the region, and also to connect with the U.S. market as well. That's one advantage that we see here. So that make us like a really well developed ecosystem in terms of opportunity, connections, support, and the reality is like there's only two real markets in Latin America. One is Brazil, the second one Mexico. But the advantage from us is like if you come to Mexico, you not only sell to Mexicans, you sell to the rest of the Spanish speaking Latin America, because you already have everything, right? The language, the understanding. If you go to Brazil, you only go to sell to Brazilians. Sorry to do that. That's what I see it. That's how I see it.
Duda, would you agree on that?
Sorry.
What's the last part of what he was talking? Sorry.
Good. Thank you so much, Mario, for that perspective. And Duda, I wanted to ask you, if I come in as a forum founder to Brazil, would you say it's relatively easy to access resources like legal advice, early hires, or different support networks, or how does it look like?
I would say that it's important to have a local partner that understand the country, the reality here. So depends of the area. Definitely, it's a good place to be funded. And yes, as Mario was saying, Brazil it's big enough, and it's a different country considering the rest of the region. So definitely, there is a lot of opportunities to be funded here.
And Mario, what would you say you see are the key trends within startups right now in Mexico? Are there any specific sectors you see that are gaining particular traction?
Yes, well, in Mexico, we have seen a lot of growth in e-commerce. That's important. Also, logistics. Just considering Mexico has, it's a really point of access and connections to the rest of the world. We have around 50, more than 50 free trade agreements to most of the countries and economies. So that make us like a really interesting point to have logistics, e-commerce. Also, there was a trend for fintech, but I think now it's crowded. a lot of startups in fintech. They're doing their stuff, and obviously AI. It's a big trend right now. AI apply to any to anything, but mostly commerce, logistics. I think that's one key trends that we see. It's raising, growing.
Very interesting. And do you see anything with sustainability as well? Or?
Yeah, well, climate tech. It's always like on the horizon. Everybody's talking about climate tech, but it's hard to find real good climate tech startups. But there's a lot of interest around those around the climate tech um, industry. Some, in some circles, some segments, health tech, maybe, the whole well-being technology and solutions. But that's, it's not like a big trend. Something that it's always, people are wanting to know and invest in those type of solutions.
So do you have any good resources to share for a foreign founder who wants to enter the Brazilian market, like an accelerator program or contacts to go to?
Unhappily not. I don't have this resources here with me. I can share if with anybody if I can find some stuff here. But I would say that it's the same areas that Mario was saying, like especially climate techs here. There is a huge opportunity because there is a public investment. There is some development banks like BNDES. There is several calls to show initiatives to be funded. So yes, there's a lot of opportunities in terms of public money and third sector money investing on those initiatives.
And with this, also like this public money, there's something that the international founders can access. It's not just local money.
It's local money. There's some initiatives here, international money. For example, there is a green fund funded from Europe in partnership with a Brazilian public bank. It's just example. They are trying to find good projects to be funded, and it's hard to find good projects big enough to be funded for this kind of money. So definitely there is a lack of good projects and money available here. So I think it's a good place to come if you have bold enough project in terms of climate tech, especially.
Very interesting, really. And Mari, I wanted to ask you, we already discussed like if like cultural differences in Brazil. What would you say a foreign founder has to be aware of before entering the Mexican market?
Well, Mexican market and the business, the doing business is all about relationship and trust. So here, it's not only having a good idea or a great solution, it's just to really know the person that you're talking to. So there's a lot of, social meetings, and that's really important in Mexican culture. We're really effective, but we need to trust and knowing that the person we're doing business with, it's a trustworthy and it's more about personal relationship. But that's a big cultural difference. Other countries that it's more focused on business and having everything set. It's like no, we really need to know the person behind this and how is he or she and the background and everything. So there's a lot of previous meetings and social gatherings before doing like real business doing it.
And based on Mexico's like unique position, would you say it's a good market for foreign founders to enter? There's a lot of support, or would you say the market is mainly dominated by local companies?
No, I think any here in Mexico, it's a big market for everyone to join. We all like any big market, we're always looking for good solutions. I believe any foreign founder can come here and just grab a little bit of the opportunity that the ecosystem has brought. Sadly, in terms of government regulations and bureaucracy, that's something that we're really missing. We don't have a good political environment for entrepreneurship. Think about the time it takes, all the process you're going to need. For example, any foreign entrepreneur that wants to start a business here, to establish their business here, they need a Mexican co-founder. So he's going to be the majority partner. So 51% of the company that you establish here has to be from a Mexican. So that's kind of the hard part. Having a bank account for a foreign is really also kind of difficult. So in those terms, it's not really friendly, but in terms of the market and the support, it's really good. And, having access to the US markets in a 2-hour flight to Miami, that's also really amazing. Not having to be in the US, but living the good life in Mexico. Maybe Brian can tell you a little bit about living the Latin American life, La Vida Loca, and then having all the access to the US market.
Thank you, Mario. That sounds very similar to Thailand, that you have to have a local owner in the company. And welcome, Brian. Would you like to introduce yourself and then share your perspective on the Central American market?
Sure. And sorry that I'm coming in late. I had an issue this morning, but everything's good. So, my name is Brian Hand, and I've been in Guatemala now. I'm the director of Impact Hub Guatemala, and I've been here 20 years, and I've ran several businesses myself and actually picked up the Impact Hub from the original founder last year. So still kind of new to some of the Impact Hub programs and systems, but I know a little about running business here in Central America. So, and yes, I'm an American, right, as Mario said, and have been down here a long time and enjoy the Latin American life, and basically I find it, with my experience in opening and running businesses here, I have actually since 2004 ran 6 different SARs and 1 nonprofit, and all of them have done well. I've sold some. It's quite easy market to break into. So on the upsides, doing business in Central America can be very easy to get up and running. And on the downside, it's a small market. I don't know the exact numbers, but Mexico City alone is probably a bigger market than most of Central America put together. So, and then of course Brazil is much, much larger, and I'm sure you guys already talked about that. So those are different, maybe easy entry, but you're exchanging that for a smaller market, right? And so it kind of depends on what your scaling plan is or what it is you're trying to accomplish. But we've done well. And oh, sorry. Working from home, so those are my dogs. And so I think, well, maybe talk just briefly about one of the businesses that I have partners in. And again, you can own nearly 100% of your business. You do need a local, if you do not get citizenship, you do have to have someone on your board, and to open an SAR here is like an LLC. You have to have one Guatemalan who can sign and be the legal rep of that, but they could own a very small percentage of the company. And so it's a little different than Mexico in that way, right? Go ahead, sorry.
What would you say are the key markets that are big in Central America? We have talked about before, like climate tech, fintech, e-commerce. Do you have something similar you see?
Yeah, I think so. You can, there is a fund called Pomona. They seem to have their finger, you can look up they have their finger on the pulse of green tech, ag, and to get a good idea, I suggest looking at their website. That fund is kind of on the cutting edge of making an impact, and it's probably a good place to start, right? But then, you know, a specific market that is particularly relevant at the moment, yeah, I don't know. Maybe I don't know enough to really comment on that intelligently, but you have a relationship. So I think Mario was talking about it a little bit, but you have a relationship with the United States here that's really kind of where some things are made, right? Made in Guatemala and shipped to the United States. So you're really looking to do your manufacturing down here and using the US market to sell. And a lot of companies do that. And then recently, or in the last 15 years, maybe, call centers have gotten quite large. And so, and anything to do with that kind of service, right? So, and those can be services even kind of service related, and where you're creating a business using the internet and kind of a call center style to sell that service in the United States. People are starting really to look into that.
Yeah, it's interesting with the connection to the US. As we have to move on to our next section soon, I want to just end with one question to all of you. If you could give one advice to a Ukrainian founder when to start in your local market, what would that be? We can start with you, Mario.
Well, I will say learn Spanish, right? It's the most biggest language used in the market in Latin America and also in Spain. And there's around 10, 50 million Spanish-speaking people in the United States. So, yeah, thinking about not in terms of geography, but as a whole, language, if you're selling digital products and for B2C, that will be, thinking about the product in Spanish and start looking to that market that, comes all the way from the United States to the Patagonia and start selling that to them. So I think more in Spanish than in geography.
Thank you, Mario. Duda, would you say learn Portuguese, or what would your advice
Yes, those are good tips. It's easier to speak Spanish in Brazil than English, for sure. So, and it's easier to learn Portuguese after you learn Spanish. So definitely you should learn Spanish and then Portuguese. And I really believe that Brazil has a unique environment because there is this gap between good projects and the demand for good solutions. So as Brian was saying, I think you have a good project. It's easy to do business around here, but I would say definitely find a good partnership with Brazilians because it makes your life easier. And think about climate, tech, and agrotech. There will be a ton of opportunities here.
Thank you so much. And to end off, Brian, what would your advice be for a Ukrainian founder?
So I think the learning Spanish, obviously, is a good first step. And then if you're thinking about Central America, you want to start a business here, you really should think of it as a region, right? You can start in Panama, you could start in Costa Rica, you could start in Guatemala, but you still have El Salvador, Honduras, and Nicaragua. And there are some trade agreements that will make that will kind of let you scale but if you're going to come into the region, have a plan to scale, to look at it as a region and have a plan to scale across the region. And then you've got yourself a good size market that you can really try to conquer.
Thank you all so much, and I hope you get a wonderful day. I understand it's morning probably where you are. So big thanks for joining today, and yes, we're gonna continue to our next session. And goodbye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah, if you wanna join me.
Of course, I'm here. And
Perfect.
it's my huge pleasure. Yeah, thank you, Alexandra. And it's my huge pleasure to introduce the next speaker, who is Jose Alvarez. Jose is a deal partner at Ghana's VC, investing in early stage startups in the USA and LATAM. And after 12 years optimizing digital performance for entrepreneurs and corporations, he now helps LATAM software companies expand into the US. So he has collaborated with many companies like Google for Startups, Movistar, Coca-Cola, Startup Grind, and he's also a director of Startup Grind, a global startup community in Silicon Valley. He mentors, inspires, and connects entrepreneurs. And we will talk today with Jose about Founders Guide to LATAM, pitfalls, mindset, and entry points. So Jose, hi.
Hi, Anastasia, how are you? Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for joining us, and it's like a huge pleasure to that you can share your experience with our Ukrainian founders. And is there anything that I didn't mention but you wanted, like to mention while introducing yourself?
I would like to highlight the thing, Ghana's Ventures. So we invest in Latin America and the USA. This is our second fund, $10 million. We already invested in 22 companies in the last 3 years, and we are looking for community-driven startups around Latin America and USA.
Thank you. And I wanted to start with some bigger picture. For our Ukrainian founders to understand, what are the most often misunderstanding that when they are planning to enter the LATAM market for the first time and they need to consider it?
Okay, here I have 3 points. So the main one is LATAM is highly fragmented. There is no one homogeneous market. Every country is different, and you don't have to overestimate the LATAM sector. So as we all speak Spanish or Portuguese and the opportunity is huge, you must be aware of the difference between the cultures. And usually in Latin America, we have some segregation between cities. So like in the coast and the Andes, the culture is going to be different. And in that way, you have to develop a product or a service thinking on that culture also. It's not just about the technology, but also the LATAM market can be quite fragmented. The other thing is localization strategies, country by country, avoiding assuming that what works in one country will scale regionally. That is probably another mistake. A lot of different words in each region, the use of the language, very specific words in every country can be misunderstood in others. So I think that is my 3 takeaways from misunderstanding LATAM. Highly fragmented, localized strategies country by country, and avoid assuming what works in one country will scale regionally.
We've talked a lot today with the different experts about the localization and cultural differences. And is there any like advice that you can give in terms of understanding the market? And maybe there are some, I don't know, resources or some like entry points that would help us as Ukrainians like enter more smoothly.
Yes, I think one like expanding without a strong local partner can be a huge mistake. So you must find a local partner to expand, like in order to understand like day-to-day things like which are the best lawyers, the best firms to work with. The local partner is going to tell you which government is doing good, the bureaucracy, also the corruptions in Latin America are things that you have to take in mind. So a local partner also is quite is you need to have a strong local partner. The other panel they were talking about speaking the language. I think you don't have to overestimate the operations. Um, so English is a barrier in Latin America. So in my case, I struggle finding entrepreneurs that or people operating the startups that are good with the English. So that can be quite it's a barrier, and you have to be aware of that. Um, Speak Spanish and Portuguese also is quite important on the other side, just to know like the main words and be familiar with the language can be helpful. And I think that is for common mistakes. If you are an early stage founder, find local partners, um, don't overestimate the operations. English can be good at the beginning, but you need to learn a bit of Spanish or Portuguese, depending on where you are operating.
And I know you have quite extensive experience with like partnering and finding like the right companies, the right people. So in your experience, what is the best way for a founder to find a trustworthy partner, the right local partner for them? Is it through, I don't know, local events or different acceleration programs? So what is your approach and your advice?
I think that what worked for me is the networking events, like networking events with huge institutions like Endeavor, Star Line, or any institution that is like a global presence will have the best, or I think like the principal actors in the ecosystem working with them or for them. So I think that kind of institutions will be the first to go in order to meet people. And for me, in terms of partnerships, I would like to like if I can give you advice is like start working in small projects so you can see if the partnership is going to work in the future. It's not just don't commit right away. Like let's plan an event together, let's go for a dinner and let's see what happened. And if you can do that regularly, if you can do that in 3 times, 5 times, probably the partnership is going to don't just sign the contracts and do the partnerships. Like try to understand first your partners.
So it's like take small steps to get to know each other, right? And do you think, talking about like soft landing strategies, is it the best way to be present there offline, or do you consider that online might also work and occasional, I don't know, events and offline presence? And is there any other, you know, like soft landing opportunities, again, like accelerators, events, networks that you feel like you would definitely have to recommend for soft landing?
Yes, one really good event that I can recommend is the Tech Week in Colombia. That I think is a good event to come and be present. Uh, I did amazing friends the last year, so for me, Colombia Tech Week is one of the huge events, and search for the startup grind chapters. That is this is like not, but
Yep.
search for that. Uh, we have directors in at least 10 cities around Latin America, and we all are volunteers. So we truly want to help people to educate them, inspire them, and connect them with the next resource. So I think that kind of organizations are the best.
And what is the best approach to you? Like, can we as Ukrainian founders reach out to you through LinkedIn or through Startup Grind global network? Like, how does the process work? And what kind of inquiries? Like, hi, I'm Ukrainian deep tech startup developing something in agriculture, and then I want to be connected. I want to, I don't know, get to know this market. So what is the customer journey to reach out to you?
Yes, I think like a call message can be not the best approach, and connecting by LinkedIn can be very hard uh, to really like catch the attention of the people. So if you can make it at least once in person, I think that is the best way. And the other thing is referrals. If you have a friend on a friend that can give you the WhatsApp contact, that is another way that is quite powerful to connect. LinkedIn can be the third, and call emails. I don't really know much about. It didn't work for me. So for me, it's offline events, online events like this, um, WhatsApp contacts from friends, referrals, and LinkedIn can be the third. But think it's quite important to interact like a real human being, like asking to connect, like how are you? I have seen that you are working on this, and I think I can give you also some value with this other thing, and interacting with comments, likes. I think that make a difference between just one message and the whole interaction. So I think it's to be consistent and very like I really like to say like entrepreneurs they need to do the homework, and that means like to be prepared. So if I want to speak with Jose is interested in this kind of topics, he would like to talk about this, or maybe I can ask these questions. So that kind of, of homework and pre-preparation help a lot with networking and building solutions.
You like started very interesting topic, and I wanted you to elaborate a bit more about it. What are your personal red flags and I don't know, mistakes that startups need to avoid that you see people are constantly doing, and it's irritating for you, and it works in reverse to I want to help this company, this person. Do you have some of your personal don'ts?
Yes, yes, I think it's automation is important for reach, not like messages and emails, but I can see when the message is not personalized. So if you don't care, like talking with me like a real human being, that is a huge red flag. The other thing is, if you want to ask for money, in my case as investors, and you just come and ask for money the first minute that I'm meeting you, also it's not the best way. No, I would like to have a conversation, know you more, see which was your past, what you did, and from that point, start talking about businesses. That is like, if I can see someone desperate for money, it's not a good sign that he has a strategy or a product or the time that he needs to have to entrepreneur. So the other is, probably this is good for partners. Like, if they ask you for uh, high upfront fees, they don't have no clear track record, or they are talking about vague promises or promises without any real value. That can be another thing to be aware. So I think that are my red flags.
Totally agree. I think that the personal touch and the personal connection works on different markets and any levels. You can always feel that this is just you're one of many whom the company reached out without checking around and everything. And to wrap up, the last question would be, what is the most crucial piece of advice, of actionable advice to a Ukrainian founder who is considering entering, scaling, expanding to the LATAM that you can give, and maybe one action that they can do right now that will help them understand which country, which region, which product they need to go with to the LATAM?
I think like the actionable advice is, like, you have to spend a serious time on the ground, like at least 30% of the first 6 months. So you need to be there. If you want to open operations there and you want to conquer the market, go there and try the food, try the people, and try to live there to know the culture. And what to avoid, building strategies only from remote research or advisor without understanding, like, it's okay to build a strategy like in remote, but don't pick everything that the mentor is going to tell you, or the advice that you just pick what is correct with you for your business, and try to avoid assumptions and ask directly to the users and the customers.
Totally agree with you. As a marketing specialist, I feel that pain about the assumptions and people taking everything as a, this is what it has to be, and the only thing. Jose, I want to say thank you for joining and for sharing your experience and spending some time and investing some time actually for growth of Ukrainian founders. Really appreciate that, and hopefully we'll see each other at some startup grind event or anywhere else in the world.
Nice. Thank you for having me and for your time also, and thank you for connecting to the session.
Thank you.
Bye.
This was bye. This was Jose Alvarez, and it's my huge pleasure to introduce you to one more speaker, amazing Bianca Corujo. Bianca is a ventures manager at Parallel 18, and she will share, she will talk about Puerto Rico, these expansion strategies and investment essentials. Bianca, hi.
Hi, thank you.
Are you here with us?
Yes,
yeah.
Can you hear me? Awesome. Yes. So thank you for the invitation, and thank you for coordinating this event. So I'm going to share my screen so you guys can see a presentation that I prepared. So first things first, I have 20 minutes and I want to make the most of it for you guys as entrepreneurs. So I'm going to be talking about Puerto Rico as a place to do business for you guys, but also since my background and specialization is in raising capital, I'm going to be sharing some tips that you can apply to raise capital for your startups. So first things first, what is Parallel 18? Parallel 18 is an innovation hub based here in Puerto Rico. We have different programs for different stages for the startups. Our mission is to help the startups throughout their stages, to do business, to expand, to grow. Parallel 18 is a part of a nonprofit organization here in Puerto Rico in the island, which is called the Puerto Rico Science, Technology, and Research Trust. So why Puerto Rico? Puerto Rico, as you know, is a territory of the United States. Therefore, we have the same legal frameworks, which is really good for making business. And we also have cultural ties not only to the US, but also to Latin America. So if you want to do business in either or, we're a good startup point so you can jump to that market. And also, we have a bilingual, highly trained workforce. So in Puerto Rico, we here speak English as well as Spanish. So it's very easy for international companies to come here and do business. So here's a little bit about the programs that I told you about. We have pre-acceleration program, our international acceleration program, our post-acceleration program called Expand, and then we have 2 incubation programs, one based on life sciences and one on renewable energy. All of our programs are free of cost because we're a nonprofit organization. And throughout the programs, we have one common denominator, and it's the following. So we give training and mentorship. Each curriculum has tailored mentors, international and local, in different parts of business. So think of it as a 360. So we're talking marketing, go-to-market strategy, raising capital, doing connections with customers, HR, accounting, anything that you can imagine. And not only do you get to share the curriculum with other startups, but we also have a network of mentors for one-on-one sessions with you. So it's an individual time that has personalized, so you can talk about whatever you want. Secondly, we have a special methodology that we use to track growth through KPIs. Each startup has a startup specialist assigned to them. So at the beginning of the program, you establish your KPIs, and that person is responsible and helps you accomplish those goals that you set out to. In 2 of our programs, we offer equity-free funding, which is a grant. Imagine money that you don't have to give back. It's just so you can keep expanding. And also, we help you connect with other top companies because we have a sub-program called P18 Connect, which is for business development. And lastly, we help you have access to investment opportunities, which is P18 Ventures, which is where I work at specifically. Here in this call, I also have our operations manager, Natasha Martinez. Say hi.
Hi.
Because today we're going to be talking specifically about the international accelerator called P18, which is the best fit for you guys. So a little bit about the program. As I said before, we give equity-free grants in 2 of our programs. This is one of them. The total amount is $40,000. That means that each startup that goes to the program gets this money to expand their startup. We select up to 20 companies per cohort, and they go through a 20-week curriculum, as in a 5-month curriculum. And we're focused on structuring the company for reaching new markets and investment preparedness. So other than the 40K, you will also have access of a network of over 600 investors, and we help you prepare to connect with these investors. We also have more than 75 connections to multinationals, as in B2B, in different industries and sectors. We have an amazing mentors and hands-on team. You not only get the mentors, but also the Parallel 18 team works as an extension of you. And we also have a platform with perks that has a value of over 500K that you have access to once you're in the program. So a little bit more about the program from P18 is that you will get to meet other startups from all over the world. Our last cohort, which is Gen 12, it was 24 startups and 12 countries represented. You have Norway, Poland, UK, Chile, Brazil, Colombia, Mexico. We really live up to the international name. And you have the chance to scale globally because that's what we want you to do. But also you get to know the local entrepreneurial system here in Puerto Rico. So what are we asking from the startups? You can use this to know if you're a good fit for the program or not. First off, we're looking for innovative projects that are early stage, as in you have 3 years of operations or less, that you have solid traction and you can show it. You have to move to Puerto Rico for 5 months. We do offer flexibility because we know that founders are busy and they have to have business trips, but still the idea is that you move to the island. You need to have scalability, so we know that you can scale your product outside of Puerto Rico and outside of the region that you're operating in. have a plan for your performance in Puerto Rico, where that's hiring, acquiring customers, among others, and you need at least 2-time full founders. Okay, so a little bit more about why Puerto Rico, specifically for this program. As I mentioned before, it's a strategic location because you have access to not only Latin America, but also US. The bilingual talent is very important, and the US legal frameworks as well. You have a rich cultural experience. Puerto Rico, obviously we're biased, but it's really beautiful, and it's just a great place with a very heartwarming community. You have a growing talent pool because you have a very skilled workforce in tech, finance, creative industries, and we have ties to local universities. And we also have a collaborative ecosystem here in the island. So we have a lot of other organizations that help you as a business, not only Parallel 18. So the selection criteria, we're looking to look at your product or service, your market and positioning, your team composition and experience, traction, and link to Puerto Rico, as in the plans that we mentioned before. So a little bit about this application, it is divided into parentheses. The first part already closed, but what we're doing for today, specifically for the people that are listening, is that if you email me directly to my email at bianca@parallel18.com, we will send you the link directly and privately so you can apply, and then you can catch up. So that's to see if you pass the first filter to make sure that you meet the requirements. So I'll be dropping my email at the end of this so you can have it and send me an email if you're interested. Okay, so kind of a segue to the second part of the presentation that we're going to be talking about investing, fundraising, specifically in LATAM. So in Parallel 18, as I mentioned, I work at Parallel 18 Ventures, which we're in charge of helping startups prepare for capital, for raise capital. We have VC education, in which we incorporate these topics into the curriculum. We also give office hours on a one-to-one basis to talk about either valuation, term sheets, cap tables, investor deck, data room, whatever you need on a one-to-one basis. We have the network of investors, so we help you connect with them, but we also invest as well. And how it's going to work for P18 is that we're going to invest in the top percentage of performing startups within the cohort. We also have another initiative, which is the Venture Capital Access Program, which is a fund dedicated to investing in startups that move to Puerto Rico and have operations there. It's a $30 million fund, which we're just starting right now. Okay, so best practices to raising capital. Feel free to ask any questions if you have them while I give this presentation. The first things first is that if you're going to raise capital, make sure that you have a clear value proposition. You have a differentiating factor, as in like you can compete, and you have a solid business model. Because if you're going to go through the effort of raising capital, bringing other people into the cap table, make sure that you have that product market fit. Because if you're raising a $2 million round and you get that money, you want to make sure that you're investing in the startup once you know it's solid. Yes, pivots will always happen, but try to have that value proposition and differentiating factor as clean as possible and set as possible before you set out to do your round. So make sure that you have commercial viability, as in what problem do you solve and who pays for it. Make sure that you have a clear understanding of who is your customer and how you're going to reach them. Make sure that you already have in mind that business model, how will you make money? And very important, do you have initial validation and traction? It doesn't always have to be revenue. Look at the users that you have, the letters of intent, the conversations that you're having. So that is what's going to let you know that you're on the right track. Secondly, having your unit economics in order. Make sure that your market is responding to your idea, that you have economic growth and economic viability. Let's talk a little bit about this. So here are some KPIs that you can use to make sure that you're on the right track. Positive signals will look like organic growth, returning customers, frequent referrals, consistent positive feedback, and low churn rates, as in the customers are using your product and they're liking it. Warning size is high customer acquisition cost. If it costs you more to bring in a customer than what he's paying, you know that you need to make a change in the value proposition and the business model. If you have low retention, if you have long sales cycle, you have low product usage and inconsistent feedback, you know that you have to go back to the drawing board and get ready for a pivot, which is not a bad thing. The faster that you learn this, the better. Okay, so thirdly, the team matters as much as the technology. You can have an awesome product, an awesome service, whatever it is that your startup is offering, but make sure that you communicate why your team is the one to make this commercialization and getting to the market. Okay? So if you have any experience in the industry, in the business, scalability, whatever it is that you can tie it to kind of ease the mind of the investor, make sure to include that in the conversation. Fourth, product and funding roadmap. Investors want to see a clear use of funds and the amount that you're raising. The idea that an investor gives you money is so that in a few years, that investment grows. So that money that they give you is going to multiply. And the way that they know that you're going to do it is the use of funds. Use of funds is a list where you're going to segment the categories in which you're going to spend that money. So if it's $2 million, you can say that 30% is going to OpEx, that you're going to do marketing, you're going to penetrate new markets, that you're going to hire key talent. Those things will go there. Okay, so fifth, understanding what investors look for. How I like to start this section is by letting you know that you need to understand the context of an investor. Most institutional VCs have LPs that they need to respond to, as in like they're responsible for their money because they're investing the money that someone else invested. So they want to make sure that this specific investment is going to blow up. So try to keep that in mind when you go to investors and try to think that if you get in their shoes, what they want is to have this going up in value as fast as possible. Also, something very important that you should keep in mind when contacting investors is their investment thesis. Every fund and some angel investors as well would state very explicitly what they're looking for. The stage, the ticket sizes, the industry. It could be something as specific as female founders working in fintech and with a focus in Latin America. Like that's something that you will find in the web pages. So feel free to reach out or even ask them if you can't find it, just to make sure that you're aligned. So that way you don't waste their time and you don't waste your time. And the other thing that I want to leave you with is that due diligence is a two-way street. Due diligence is a process that you're going to go through once you connect with the investor and you move on to the next step. They're going to research your startup, your financials, your cap tables, your plans, your go-to-market strategy. But try to keep in mind that you also have to research them. So try to look at past investments that they've done. How do they act as an investor? How active do they want to be? Because raising capital is not just about the money. You want to bring in someone with experience that is going to help you. So whether you're in software, you might want to get someone that has expertise in that. If you're fintech, if you want to open in specifically Brazil, you might get an investor that knows about that market. So make sure that you align and that you research them enough to know if this is a good partner for you, because this relationship is going to last from 5 to 7 to 10 years. Okay, so something that I like to close this presentation with is that there are a lot of free tools that you can use for raising capital. First things first, you will need an investor deck. So you can use a branded presentation. Less is more when it comes to the visuals. You can use SlideSgo, you can use Canva. You will have branded presentations that are free. You will need a data room. Data room is where you're going to store all of your documents. This is what the investors use in the due diligence process. As well, Notion has a very good free template for data rooms. It's amazing and it looks very clean. Also, the cap table, this is going to show how your business is divided, who has equity right now. Carta has a great free template that you can use, and it's very easy to use specifically with Carta because they give you instructions on how to fill it out. If you want to raise money through a safe, it doesn't have to be the case. It could also be a price round or a convertible note. But in the case that is a safe, a simple agreement for future equity, which is literally built to make it simple. Y Combinator has a template that it's very popular use for early stage startups. It literally has a paragraph that says nothing has been changed in this document except for the bracketed terms. So that's why it's so easy to use, because it's standardized. Also, when it comes to legal documents for fundraising, I learned this in VC University. There's this tool called tome.ai, and you upload the documents, and with AI, they give you feedback on it and red flags, and they can ask you questions, and you can get answers of things that you might be a little bit doubtful of what it means. This tool can help you as well. So I want to leave you with two more things. This is an investor deck checklist that we share with the Parallel 18 startups. Here you have more or less how that investor deck is going to look and all of the sections that you need. From the first slide, that is your logo with the one-liner, to stating your problem, solution, the demos and like how it works for your startup, the product or service, how you make money with the business model, your go-to-market strategy, the market size, competition and differentiation. If you have an IP or a certain enduring advantage, you can include it. The team, very important. Why you? Traction, my favorite slide. Show what is working and the numbers speak for themselves. Financials, and very importantly, always close with your ask and your use of funds. And then your data room basics checklist, here you have it as well. You can also use it. Make sure to include your team, your cap table, your financials, your business model, your market research, your corporate docs, and some pitch decks that you have. You can include it there as well. And here's the tools that I mentioned before. This is how the cap table looks in Carta. This is how the saves look in Y Combinator. And this is how Tome.ai looks like. So I'm going to leave you with this quote, and it's that great ideas need money. Don't be afraid to raise capital. Raising capital for a lot of startups is the next step to blowing up, to going to a new market, to developing a new feature, developing another product within the value proposition. So if you need money for that, that's great. And maybe venture capital is a step for you to get this to the next level. So now if you have any questions, lastly, don't forget, if you want to apply to P18 Gen 13, send me an email, bianca@parallel18.com. This is only going to be open for today for you guys. The first part, you can fill it out in 5 minutes. Yeah. It's designed specifically just to meet the requirements, to make sure that you meet them or not. And then we'll send you the second part if it's a fit.
Bianca, thank you so much for your presentation. I loved it a lot. It was so practical and down to earth and very, like specific with what we asked you to. So thank you so much. We have several questions, but the first one would be actually from me, is that would you recommend the startups begin building relationship early on, even before they are actively raising? And in your experience, like how long does it take, this investment process in Puerto Rico from your experience?
Okay, so the first part of the question, it depends. It is good to make relationships from the start, but when you're going to go with things that are a little bit more sensitive, like your financials and your go-to-market strategy, your cap tables and stuff like that, there is this tip that I learned from venture deals, that when you reach for investors, when you reach out, segment them in Class A, which is this would be perfect. Class B, there's a fit. And Class C, this is like worst case scenario. And you start with your plan B, because this is how you start getting you start to break the ice. A lot of investors are going to ask you for extra information, ask you tough questions. So you're going to get better and better after each pitch and receiving that feedback. And then you get to your Class A. So definitely start building your relationships, but try first to break the ice with things that are a little bit more sensitive.
I love that advice.
Yes. And then the second part of the question is as well, depends. I've seen cases where startups that are very good at raising capital, they close in a few months and they're oversubscribed. But I also see startups that struggle for 2 years to close a round. So it really depends.
We don't have much time, but we have like 3 questions. So let's start. Let's try to be very concise and fast. So first question, for a startup considering establishing a presence in Puerto Rico, what are the first steps would you recommend? And any common mistakes that you would recommend avoiding?
Do you want to jump in on this one?
Sure. Okay. Hi, nice to meet you. Well, I think one of the most important things is that at least for participating in the program, you need to be either incorporated in the US or in Puerto Rico. So those things, they should not take that much time, but they could. So maybe start looking for lawyers to help you out to establish your company here. One really important detail is the visa. So if you want to come have an operating company either in the US or in Puerto Rico, you need to have a specific visa for work, not just for traveling. So that could be the thing that maybe takes a little bit of time. So I will start working on that process, on the legal processes right away.
Yeah, if I can add one more thing specifically connected to raising capital, Delaware C Corps are the go-to. So a lot of Puerto Rican startups, if they have presence here, they have a Delaware C Corp and then a Puerto Rico LLC as a subsidiary. So if you're planning on raising capital, that is what is best known and it's going to save you a lot of no's.
Yeah.
Thank you for that add up. And I will try to combine two questions, like which startup sectors in Puerto Rico are currently experiencing the most growth and attracting significant investment, and offer the most like accessible entry points or have active supporting programs?
So I think definitely life sciences, climate tech.
Life sciences, climate tech, and we have seen a lot of AI in the last few years. So that's, I would say, biotech or anything that have to do with life sciences is booming right now, and Puerto Rico is a great soft landing to that market. Climate is also booming, and then anything that has to do with artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much for being here and for answering questions. Really appreciate that. And hopefully we will get in touch and figure out how we can like strengthen the collaboration between Puerto Rico and Ukraine in terms of deep tech startups. Thank you for joining us today.
Bye.
Bye. Alexandra, please.
Thank you so much, Anastasia and Bianca. It was super interesting. And we're going to move on to our last session for the day, sadly, which is a panel discussion on the investment landscape. And with us, we have Diana Narvaez and Marcos Henrique Cardoso. Welcome to the stage. I'm so happy to have you here today. Are you guys here? Yes.
Yeah.
Hello, Marcos.
Yeah, we're here.
Hi,
everyone.
Hello,
Hi, everyone.
Diana. Super nice seeing
First of all,
you.
super happy to be here. Thanks a lot for inviting us and for working on this panel. Super happy to be here and also share a couple of thoughts on how we're looking at Latin America. I decided to invite Diana as well. Diana is from Polish Ventures. I'll let her introduce herself, but I think she'll also add a lot here to our discussion. And yeah, just quickly introducing myself. My name is Marcos. I'm the VC associate here at Plug and Play São Paulo. So here at Plug and Play, similar as in other offices, we invest in early stage startups from the region. I am specifically more focused in the fintech and insurtech side of the sectors. But yeah, we've been looking a lot into Latin America, and I think we can, as being boots on the ground here in the region, I think it will be great to share with you guys how we're seeing the region, but I'll let Diana also introduce herself so we can start the discussion.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you so much for inviting us. It's a pleasure to be here. It's very well today. Mark.
Diana, I'm so sorry, but we hear you a bit. Yeah. Try again. Yeah.
Is that a little bit?
Maybe it's better now. Try again. I'm sorry.
Okay, now that's it. I can switch my headphones. It was working earlier.
Yeah.
I can try changing.
Now I think it works better.
Yeah, now it's better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you.
I'll keep let me know if in case it changes. But I was just saying thank you for inviting us. I am with Flourish Ventures. Flourish is a global VC fund focused on early stage fintech. So one of the questions here would be with sectors. I think we look for investing in LATAM, and we'll talk more about it, but it seems like a concentration here of fintech investors on this panel, but we're happy to chat about all the sectors. At Flourish, but we have
yeah, your audio is cutting up a bit.
I was gonna say,
Diana, sorry. Yeah.
Maybe if you try, like you said, if you had another set of headphones, if it worked.
Yeah, let me switch.
Thank you. And Marcus, maybe just meanwhile, do you want to tell which sectors and a bit more about which region within the Latin market you have been focusing on?
Yeah, I think like Diana also give a lot of view, and especially since she's also investing in fintech, is that fintech plays a big role here in Latin America in general. So throughout the years, throughout the latest, I don't know, 3 to 4 years, we've been having a lot of growth in the fintech sector. So right now, fintech basically accounts for more than 40% of all deals done in Latin America. So it plays a big role. And I think when we look into how investors look into the appetite of the region, I think here in LATAM, I think it comes down a lot to regional challenges. So here in Latin America, we suffer with several different challenges. So banking is a big one. So that's why fintech had a huge boom, and we have cases such as Nubank and Creditas that did super well in the region and are now expanding abroad. It is because we face with a large population of underbanked people. So due to the large underbanked population, this is one of the sectors that has been getting a lot of funding, and this continuously keep happening as the technology evolves. Of course, as the last panel also mentioned, AI became this sort of a big buzz. So everyone around LATAM as well is looking also into AI. But I think what is interesting when you compare, especially with the US or Europe and more developed markets, is that we see the shift coming away from the big LLMs and large language models, and we see a lot more going towards the application side. So when we look into AI, what we see is a lot of companies trying to tackle regional issues. So for example, fraud, several challenges regarding operational efficiency, and of course, that way AI can definitely improve a lot on that side. So we have seen also funding shifting towards those segments, towards AI specifically. But this is very much focusing on the regional challenges, as I was mentioning before. So of course, underbanked and large amount of fraud and very few access to services such as healthcare, for example. So what we have seen in LATAM that it differentiates a bit from other regions is that while we do have like high growth companies, most of them are very tapped into local challenges. So local issues that constantly and throughout the decades we've seen happening in LATAM. We end up seeing this happening more within Latin America, and we see that innovation and tech can help push this and help solve those several issues. So when we look into the sectors, I would say it's fintech. AI, of course, is having a big boost, but everything I think has to take into account the regional challenges. And yeah, Diana, I don't know if you want to add on that as well.
Can you guys hear me better?
Yes,
perfect.
Much better.
Okay, sorry about that. We tested the earphones earlier, but okay, I'll finish introducing myself and then I'll tie to the question about key sectors. So fintech focused investor, earliest stage, we typically invest in seed and series A. We have a global mandate. We focus in emerging markets, so the global south as well as the United States. And a little different from a traditional venture capital fund is we are an evergreen fund, which means our funding structure is a permanent fund that doesn't have to raise future funds. And so we are able to invest from the single fund in the life cycle of a startup, which also impacts in the way that we see our investments more of a longer term, I would say a bit more patient capital because of that specific structure that gives us that flexibility. So it's an important thing when you when founders talk to funds to understand what kind of cycles they're working on, because you want to think about your next round as well. We've been investing in Latin America for the past 12 years. We have a total of about 80, 90 active companies around the globe. and I would say digital banking, core infrastructure for financial services, cross-border payments, embedded finance, anything that has to do with B2B sales and embedded financial services are some of the things that we are currently interested in. In terms of Latin America, kind of zooming out a bit more, I think, as Marcos was saying, two of the top three sectors that I would highlight here are obviously fintech. Between 45 to 60% of the venture capital money that goes into the region is going to fund startups that are solving for financial services. I would say another large percentage is going to solve for now ag tech and clean tech. So with the rising, this has been rising due to the climate resilience needs. That we need more money going into solutions that are helping the agricultural sector. And we are seeing as well a rise on funds, venture capital funds with a specific focus on clean tech or climate and technology. And then last but not least, AI and e-commerce. So with the advent of large e-commerce companies like Mercado Libre in Latin America, the high penetration and adoption of mobile and the increasing as well penetration of credit cards and digital payment methods, we're seeing the behavior of more and more people, population in lower segments of the pyramid now purchasing online. And so anything that has to do with marketplaces, e-commerce, online payments, etc., has been gaining big traction as well.
Very interesting perspective. Thank you so much, guys, for sharing, especially, and it makes sense that it should always be based on the local issues. I think it's sometimes when you're like a foreign founder, you base it so much on your local context, but obviously what you're saying makes a lot of sense. And I wanted to ask maybe first you, Marcos, do you see any specific change in the investment landscape the last 2 to 3, 4 years? Yes.
That's a great question. Yeah, because in LATAM, we did have across, of course, all regions, we did have a spike in 2021, which drove a lot of growth in investments. But of course, since the reductions and the contraction of the market, we have seen funding going down 2022, 2023. And funny enough, 2024 was the first year after this growth that we also saw a significant growth in funding and the volume of deals. So that is very interesting because I think it shows that there's more funds that are open to double down in Latin America and looking into more of those regions. So what we have seen is that we've seen less funding coming from international players in a way, like coming to the region. But what we do see is a lot more localized and specific players, not only in terms of geography, but in terms of sector as well. So we do see those type of funds and those type of investors sort of picking up the pace and continuously investing in the region. And also what we do have when we look into the data around deals, we see that there's also a large percentage going into the early stage. So what we do see in LATAM is that those funds are pretty much looking into investing early into those companies and writing smaller checks. And in a way, one of the main challenges that the region as a whole has right now is how can we bring investors to the late stage? So when a company goes to a Series A or Series B, then the funding is sort of a bit lower. So what we have seen now and over the past 2 or 3 years is that while we do see the investment volume picking up and slightly growing, we also see that growing mainly to early stage companies. So there have been this shift in funding, but there has been a lot more funds focusing on specific themes, which I think it kind of creates a difference between other more developed markets when you have larger funds, which much more of like an agnostic piece. I think what we have here is very specialized and thematic funds, I would say, focusing on specific sectors and looking into more on the early stage side as well. Yeah.
Very interesting. Diana, do you want to add on that?
Certainly, I think the kind of the three main themes I see here is Market mentioned the maturity in the local VC ecosystem. So we see a couple of funds that have been around for a long time and they're now multi-stage funds. And then we see this rise of smaller funds that started as micro VCs, became now more pre-seed funds and are currently raising to funds to become or to raise larger amounts of capital to continue kind of that continuum of investments. I think the earlier stage focus, definitely. I've also seen a post this funding winter that we saw since 2022, a big focus on larger deals that are attracting lots of capital, maybe even larger rounds or similar size rounds of what we used to see in 2021. But these are also founders that have been around for longer. So they are serial founders who have either exited or closed their companies before, and they have this baggage and this great expertise on how to do it again or not do it again. But those founders are raising very large rounds. And then we see a long tail of very early stage companies that are attracting capital from local funds. I would say the last thing is sustainability over hype. So from an investor's perspective, there's a bigger focus on unit economics and trying to make sure that businesses that we back, even in the pre-seed stage, make sense from the onset in terms of economics. But also, I also see it from the founder's perspective, more interest and urge to prove profitability at much earlier stages, even pre-seed companies being profitable. And of course, Series A companies now trying to reach that in order to then unlock growth capital for the next series.
I find what you say with profitability so interesting because it's exactly the same in Europe that, before, for instance, before Corona, everyone just invested with no real sign of profitability, but nowadays people are much more restrictive. So it's interesting to see a similar trend in Latin America. And Diana, I can ask you first, what do you think would be one of the biggest challenges for international founders securing funding in LATAM? And do you have any tips on how to overcome it?
One of the biggest challenges, I think, I will mention two: regulation and cultural fit. One of the things that one of the biggest criteria that we look for when investing is founder market fit. And that can come from different flavors, right? Either founder has expertise in the industry and is now building and expanding on that previous knowledge, founder is local and has felt the pain that they're now trying to solve. And so obviously, as myself being a foreigner, almost all my life being Colombian, but living in the US, in Mexico, now in Brazil, being able to adapt and understand the nuances of each region is extremely important. And that, again, ties to both the ability to understand regulation. If you guys are building in a space like financial services that requires understanding very closely what are the, again, nuances of each of the markets, what are the central banks' interest towards innovation or not. And then on the other side, it's understanding the cultural differences, because that's going to impact your go-to-market strategy. That's going to impact how you build the product, et cetera. So I would say those are the biggest challenges. I think it's nothing that you guys haven't heard, but I think in it's in Brazil and Latin America culture that is super relationship based, understanding how people communicate, being local, hiring a local team are some of the things that could help with those challenges.
I think that has been a common sentiment along this whole webinar with this cultural fit that many of our previous speakers said, like, please move to the country where you're going or have like a local partner, because it's so extremely important to actually build relationships and not just have a digital presence. So it's nice to get that confirmed even from an investment perspective. Marcus, what would you add?
Yeah, I think that's really really on point. What I will add, I will try to give a different perspective, because I also do believe that sometimes a founder that also does not come exactly from Latin America can also have an edge. So when we look into, for example, Nubank, they had international founders as well that were not Brazilian, but they built in Brazil, because they're able to see and expect changes in how the market develops. So in one way, there are cultural challenges, and LATAM in general, culture plays a big role. But if I could add something, it would be that also being an outsider can also be something positive. If you are building, for example, in a sector that it's that where you previously worked at, it's more developed than Latin America. So you can also bring insights that can be interesting to the region, and it can create some sort of like a new way of thinking of building a solution. So while I do believe that culture and regulation plays a big role, I also think that international founders can have an edge on that as well by expecting changes and being able to be closer to regions that those changes already happened, and able to position themselves in a more early development in a different region like Latin America. So what I would say is that, yeah, be mindful of that, but it's also nice how the differentiator in where you came from can also have a positive impact as well.
Thank you for adding that, and to almost develop and that it's connected to my next question. How would you rate the importance of having like local traction from an international founder? Like, oh, we have a lot of traction in Colombia, or is it enough to already have a track record, for example, in Europe or in Ukraine with the traction?
Yeah, I think of course it depends a lot on the stage and the industry that you're tackling. Of course, there are some industries that have some sort of similarities between both regions, so we can some sort of extrapolate and see how the impacts of, for example, building this product in Europe, how they can be adapted in Latin America. However, I do think that it's very important and plays a big role on having that feet on the ground and building in Latin America, because as we were mentioning before, there are a lot of cultural, regulatory, and sort of market dynamics that are very specific to LATAM. So it depends. I think it would depend a lot of on the industry. So if the industry can be easily adaptable, or if the industry dynamics are similar to what we have in Latin America, I think it is a positive. However, I do think that it's very important for you to have boots on the ground and already have some sort of initial early traction here in the region as well. I think it's quite important, actually.
Thank you. And actually, I see the time is running up, so I want to end with one last question to both of you. You can decide. But Diana, so either please share about a startup pitch that like really stick with you and why it stick with you, and or if you have some tips for Ukrainian founders who wants to raise money to go to Latin America.
Absolutely. Our job is continuously meeting founders and listening to pitches. And the ones that I enjoy the most are the ones that come in more natural or are less rehearsed and less robotic and automated. And it's challenging because time is usually short, and there is a statistic that says you read the pitch in 1-2 minutes and then you already know if this could be something that could fit. I think one of the biggest things that has helped those conversations to be more genuine and more stronger, more interesting, are the fact that the homework is done beforehand. So having a fit, knowing that there is a fit with the fund makes a conversation much more interesting. So if I'm already investing in B2B fintech and there is a B2C company that comes to pitch and doesn't understand, I normally take the chance to explain a bit more what my interests are, or even going to LinkedIn and find out what have been the latest investments and try to connect with that. Because time is limited, and for founders and for investors as well. So trying to, again, figure out who you're talking to or who you're reaching out to before that makes sense. The second thing I'll mention is warm introductions, which are not always necessary, but making sure that, again, you're trying to find information about the person that you're talking to beforehand, just enhances that conversation. So founders in our portfolio, or even founders that we've already met that maybe we haven't invested but know the firm, it's important to kind of do that research beforehand. Personal stories, Alexandra, are tied to what they're building and why they're passionate about what they're building are some of those features that today resonate with me. Like, it makes really sense why Marcus is building something in that space, because it was a pain that he suffered growing up, or that he suffered in the 10 years that he worked at a bank. Those are exactly what resonates most with me.
Thank you so much for sharing, and I think that's very human and natural, right? We love stories and getting the personal perspective of it, especially as it's so incredibly important for the founder's motivation, and the founder's motivation is almost everything. So thank you so much, Diana. Marcus, do you want to share your perspective on this question?
Yeah, no, that really nice what Diana mentioned. I do think that it really comes down to relationships. I think especially in Latin America, this is of course as EVC as a whole, but I think especially in Latin America, like when usually we have warm intros, when you already understand the fit between the fund and the founder, if you already have built the relationship between the fund, other types of portfolio companies that were invested by the fund you're speaking with. I think that's very important, and I think that's very specific to Latin America. These sort of personal relationships and the personal connection that you also build with someone that can potentially invest down the line. So I do think that when you are able to nurture that relationship with the investor, the pitch becomes easier than as always. And I do agree with Diana. If I have to give an example, it's one of our portfolio companies that are building the wealth space, in the health space. But when they come down to me, their whole experience was around oil and gas. And the first question they will ask is, okay, why would you build something in health if your whole experience is AI for oil and gas? And then I've learned about the founder struggles with his family's health condition and how he saw that as an opportunity to build something on that sector, and they're doing pretty well. And I do think that learning that was the reason behind him building the company, I think played a big role on two things. I think at first on how we view the founder, but I think more important than that is how the company was able to develop. Because of course we have a limited amount of information to do the investment decision. But I think especially as you look in throughout the years and you see that idea and that vision coming into place, you kind of start seeing, the effect of the motivation behind building something. So I do think that every time that happens and we see that passion, it truly stands out from other people. Because if not, it's a traditional 30-minute pitch, So it when you are able to bring that sort of motivational factor, I think plays a big role on how to pitch to investors.
Really, really big thank you, Marcus and Diana. This was amazing to listen into, and I'm so happy and grateful that you wanted to share your perspectives with our Ukrainian founders and that you want to support the project Seeds of Bravery. And I hope you maybe will meet some of the Ukrainian founders and they will contact you if they are the right fit for your fund. So thank you so much, guys.
Thank you,
Thank
Alexandra,
you.
and thanks, Marcus, for the invite. Happy to help in anything we can, and I have shared my LinkedIn and my email, Alexandra, if you can make it publish it to everybody else.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Yes,
I
thank
share
you
my
so
email
much.
as well. So yeah, feel free to email me, anyone that is interested in learning more.
Thank you so much, both of you. And like I mentioned before, this was our last part of today. Thank you to all of the participants, as well to all of our amazing speakers and panelists. It's been a packed day, and I am so excited to hopefully one day go to Latin America and support your Ukrainian founders to open up businesses there, as we see there's a lot of market potential. Before we end, I just want to remind you of our communication channels. We have our website, newsletter, Telegram, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn, and YouTube. And this session will also be uploaded on YouTube. And otherwise, just a big thank you. We will host our last Market Discovery Day probably in July. It's not totally set yet, but we'll come with more information later. And if you have any questions, I will be here for a minute. And otherwise, just thank you for your great participation. And thank you to all of our partners who have helped in organizing this event. Hello. Thank you, Anastasia. Thank you, Abby, for today.
Thanks, guys. Sure, thank you so much. I think it was wonderful, and I'm happy that we did that. And our next workshop will be about Central Asia, and hopefully we'll see you there as well.
Yes. Thank you so much, guys.
Have a good evening and night.
Yes,
Bye-bye.
have a good evening. Goodbye.